Chapter 723. As the Emperor of Fengdu's words fell, Emperor Jun's breath stagnated, and the technique he used to attack the Emperor of Fengdu slowed down. His eyes were filled with uncertainty. That's right. The Hongmeng immortal vapor was the key to becoming a saint. Why didn't Yi Xian come to intercept the Emperor of Fengdu? Did he really not care about becoming a saint? Doubtful, extremely doubtful. As a sage-to-be, Emperor Jun knew very well how tempting the Hongmeng immortal vapor was to becoming a saint. Brothers, please stop. Suddenly, Emperor Jun growled. Zhurong had already retracted his superpowers. Obviously, he had heard the words of the Emperor of Fengdu and was also doubtful. Obviously, although they were blinded by greed, they were supreme figures in the world and were not stupid. Obviously, they had also noticed the doubtful points. Brothers, please listen to me. The three sage-to-be stopped finally allowed the Emperor of Fengdu to breathe a sigh of relief. He told the story in an extremely aggrieved manner. However, the more he spoke, the more irritable he became. His face was filled with great humiliation. Could Huang Maji really be Yi Xian's man? Zhurong murmured in surprise. It's not impossible. Otherwise, why would Yi Xian give up the Hongmeng immortal vapor? Emperor Jun's face was filled with uncertainty, and a murderous look flashed across his eyes. Brothers, please understand. The Hongmeng immortal vapor is really in Yi Xian's hands. I was also fooled by Yi Xian, the Emperor of Fengdu explained angrily. Suddenly, Emperor Jun snorted coldly. He looked at Emperor Fengdu gloomily and said, "Who knows if you are lying or not? If this is just a story made up by you, then aren't you treating us like 3-year-old children? I can make a great vow of the heart demon. Everything I say is true. Otherwise, I will never be able to step into the saint realm." The Emperor of Fengdu made a great vow of the heart demon and looked at Emperor Jun and the others with shame and anger. As the Emperor of Fengdu made the great vow of the heart demon, Emperor Jun and the others' faces changed slightly. It should be known that the great vow of the heart demon was extremely terrifying. Even sages-to-be did not dare to make such a vow rashly. Because breaking such a vow would breed a heart demon during cultivation. The slightest carelessness would cause one's soul to scatter between heaven and earth. Is what he said true? Emperor Jun was bewildered. The fact that Yi Xian did not appear was already a big doubt. At this moment, the great Emperor of Fengdu had made a great oath of the heart demon. How could Emperor Jun not have other thoughts? However, Emperor Jun did not completely trust Fengdu. After all, the Emperor of Fengdu was currently in a life-and-death crisis. Moreover, he had made a great oath of the heart demon in order to hide the Hongmeng immortal vapor. Such a price was not unbearable. Open your Sumeru space and let us see if the Hongmeng immortal qi is really not with you, Emperor Jun said coldly. You. Hearing Emperor Jun's words, the Emperor of Fengdu was furious. It was an insult to him, but he had to lower his head. If he did not prove his innocence, he would be in danger today. Buzz! The void swayed and rippled. The Emperor of Fengdu finally opened his Sumeru space and allowed Emperor Jun and the others to see. However, there was no sign of the Hongmeng immortal qi in his Sumeru space except for some spiritual weapons of ghost path and some divine sense secret skills. The Hongmeng immortal qi is really not with you. Emperor Jun's face was gloomy, and there was great disappointment in his eyes. He did not need to check carefully. Just by sensing with his primordial spirit, he knew that the Hongmeng immortal qi was indeed not with the Emperor of Fengdu. The Hongmeng immortal qi has fallen into Yi Xian's hands. If he becomes a saint, we will all be in danger. Emperor Jun, you should understand this, the Emperor of Fengdu said angrily. All right, I'll believe you this time. However, if you dare to deceive me and hide the primordial violet qi, I'll bring the ancient demon court and charge into the netherworld even if you return to the netherworld. I'll definitely make you die a graveless death. Emperor Jun said coldly and disappeared. Obviously, he was going to return to the ancient demon court to tell the news to the Eastern Emperor Tai. Although Emperor Jun wanted to go to the celestial court to find Yi Xian, he was no match for Yi Xian and several sages to be. He could only return to the ancient demon court to ask for help. Yi Xian. Zhu Rong muttered in a low voice. He didn't even glance at the Emperor of Fengdu before instantly disappearing. It was obvious that he wanted to send this news back to the shaman clan. The primordial violet chi definitely couldn't fall into Yi Xian's hands. Taoist Qing Tian left with a flattering smile. The two sages-to-be had already left. He was just a beginner in the Saint realm. Even if he wanted to force the Emperor of Fengdu, a starving camel was still bigger than a horse. Without Emperor Jun and Zhurong by his side, he would be killed if he dared to do anything to the Emperor of Fengdu. As the three of them left, the Emperor of Fengdu clenched his fists. Blue veins appeared on his forehead and his face turned purple. Puff! A mouthful of blood spurted out from the Emperor of Fengdu's mouth. It was not because he was injured, but because he was played by Yi Xian and Fatso Huang. He was so angry that he finally spat out a mouthful of blood. Yi Xian. Huang Maji. How dare the two of you play with me like this? I won't let the two of you off easily. Since I can't get the Hongmeng Immortal Chi, none of you can get it. The Emperor of Fengdu roared in anger. His expression was ferocious and terrifying. He made a crazy decision in his heart. Don't all of you want the Hongmeng Immortal Chi? I'll announce the news of Yi Xian obtaining the Hongmeng Immortal Chi to the three realms. I'd like to see how you deal with it. The Emperor of Fengdu roared angrily. He had already given up and made this crazy decision. Then, he instantly disappeared into the firmament. In the 9 layers of clouds, there were thousands of auspicious chi and auspicious clouds floating. A Taoist in green was covered in chaotic holy light. He was above the 9 heavens of Pan Zhu without saying a word. The green-robed Taoist's appearance couldn't be seen clearly, but the aura that radiated from his body was extremely terrifying. There were also rumbling sounds coming from his body, which made people feel dizzy just by looking at him. My good disciple, I really didn't expect that not only did you become a sage-to-be, but you also walked the path of proving your Tao with strength. If you were given more time, wouldn't you surpass me? The Taoist in green muttered to himself. There were even sounds of praise coming from his mouth. I really underestimated you. I didn't expect you to have such courage to walk the path of proving your Tao with strength. However, you have to cherish the Hongmeng Immortal Chi that I gave you. It's a treasure that can help you become a saint. Don't let me down. Ha! The Taoist in green laughed loudly. His laughter rumbled and the boundless auspicious clouds dissipated without a trace. Clearly, the appearance of the Hongmeng Immortal Chi in the 3 realms was his doing. Otherwise, why would the Hongmeng Immortal Chi appear when Yi Xian broke the sky with a halberd? Not far away, not far away. You and I, master and disciple, will meet again soon. I wonder if you will be shocked when I appear in front of you. The Taoist in green smiled coldly. His entire body suddenly became illusory and gradually disappeared above the 9 layers of clouds. Chapter 724. The Celestial Emperor has no boundaries. Cheers and cries filled the celestial court as countless immortals and demon kings hurried to the Lingshao Hall. In the Lingshao Hall, the 3 demi-saints were seated high above. They were Kunpeng Kong Xian and Grand Supreme Elderly Lord. Yi Xian sat on the central throne, accompanied by the Empyrean Fairy. The immortals of the celestial court were bewildered. Yi Xian had brought back 2 demi-saints, both of whom were extremely famous figures. The strength of the celestial court had soared. On the central throne, Yi Xian looked down at the group of immortals. His expression was neither sad nor happy, but as he looked at every immortal and demon king, they all hurriedly shifted their gazes away. Where is Shen Gongbao? Yi Xian asked softly. Shen Gongbao quickly stepped forward and bowed to Yi Xian. Your humble servant is here. Don't you have anything to say to me? Yi Xian narrowed his eyes. Your humble servant. Yi Xian's tone was somewhat unfriendly, which made Shen Gongbao's expression change slightly. A trace of bitterness flashed through his eyes, because he knew what Yi Xian was thinking. Ever since the ancient Fei court had reappeared in the world, many immortals of the Jia sect had been on good terms with it. Moreover, he had personally sent a congratulatory invitation. This kind of thing couldn't be hidden at all. Celestial Emperor, Shen Gongbao wanted to say something, but stopped. In the end, he didn't explain himself. Clearly, he had his own difficulties. Thump, thump, thump. Yi Xian tapped the table in front of him with his fingers, producing rhythmic sounds. However, an extremely oppressive atmosphere grew throughout the Lingshao Hall, and the immortal and demon kings of the celestial court gradually fell silent. Immortals of the Jia sect, step forward. Suddenly, Yi Xian spoke calmly. However, as soon as his voice fell, the immortals of the Jia sect changed their expressions slightly, but they still stepped forward one after another. Heaven Emperor, you. Shen Gongbao's heart skipped a beat. He had a feeling that something terrible was going to happen, which made him cry out in horror. But when he saw Yi Xian's merciless eyes, he swallowed his words. Time has changed. You immortals of Jia school have followed me for 70,000 to 80,000 years. Even if you don't contribute, you have worked hard. Yi Xian paused for a moment and then continued, however, I cannot tolerate sand in my eyes. Today, I will give you immortals of the Jia school a chance. If any of you want to leave the celestial court, you can leave. I will not stop you. Hiss. As Yi Xian's words fell, the sound of gasps immediately rang out. A large number of gazes focused on Yi Xian. Everyone's eyes were extremely complicated. Clearly, Jia school had secretly befriended the ancient demon court. This had already violated Yi Xian's taboo. Otherwise, Yi Xian would not have said that. Silence, silence, extreme silence. The Jia school, led by Shen Gongbao, was dead silent at this moment. They did not know how to answer Yi Xian, but everyone's eyes were filled with hesitation. Looking at the scene in front of him, Yi Xian slowly shook his head. He knew that the attitude of these immortals was not important. Clearly, any decision of the Jia school was the will of Tang Tian. Yi Xian also knew that Nuwa had once looked for Tang Tian. This also made Tang Tian waver, so it affected the loyalty of the Jia school to him. Yi Xian was a very simple person. He did not need disloyal people. If his subordinates were disloyal, he might as well kick them out of the celestial court. This was how he conducted himself. The ancient demon court was too powerful and was once the orthodox sect of heaven and earth. Moreover, Nuwa had personally looked for Tang Tian. Only Tang Tian had secretly spoken. Otherwise, the immortals of the Jia school would definitely not have the guts to befriend the ancient demon court. Yi Xian understood this logic. You all can leave. Yi Xian waved his hand. This also made Shen Gongbao and the other immortals of the Jia school sigh. However, all of their faces were slightly pale, and there was a heavy look in their eyes. All the demon kings, step forward. After the immortals of the Jia school left, Yi Xian spoke again. This also stunned the demon kings, but they still walked out one by one and bowed to Yi Xian. Among you, there are demon kings who once followed me in the lower realm, and there are also people who joined me, Yi Xian. However, you are all members of the demon race. This time, the ancient demon court has reappeared in the world. With the support of Saint Nuwa, it wants to regain control of the three realms of heaven, earth, and man and let the demon race become the overlords of heaven and earth again. Yi Xian spoke tirelessly. However, when the demon kings heard this, their expressions kept changing. No one knew what they were thinking. There are no two suns in the sky, and there are no two rulers in the people. The 33rd celestial court that I command will sooner or later fight with the ancient demon court. All of you are members of the demon race. It's extremely difficult for you to be caught in the middle. After all, you and I have been monarchs for tens of thousands of years. Today, I will give you a chance. If anyone wants to leave the celestial court, I will not stop you. However, when we meet again in the future, if you join the ancient demon court, don't blame me for not taking into account our past relationship. As Yi Xian finished speaking, the entire Lingxiao Hall fell silent. Clearly, Yi Xian was reorganizing the celestial court and eliminating all the uneasy factors. Silence, silence, dead silence. This silence lasted for more than 10 breaths of time. Every demon king had a conflicted look on their faces. Just as Yi Xian said, they were members of the demon race. The ancient demon court was the orthodox demon race. Moreover, it had the full support of Saint Nuwa. The two celestial emperors of the demon race were supreme existences. If they continued to follow Yi Xian, they would definitely bear the name of betraying the demon race. Moreover, since Nuwa's decree had spread throughout the three realms, the billions of demons in the three realms had all submitted to the ancient demon court. How could they not know that they were caught in the middle? This made things extremely difficult for them. Celestial Emperor. Suddenly, a figure walked out. This person had a crocodile head and a human body. He was a great demon king with a cultivation at the fourth heavenly layer of the Grand Luo realm. He was called True Lord Crocodile Demon. Your Majesty, it's not that this subject wishes to leave the celestial court, but this subject is still a member of the demon race. If the two celestial emperors and Her Majesty Nuwa hadn't summoned the billions of demons, this subject would have followed you wholeheartedly. However, this subject does not wish to bear the name of betraying the demon race. I can only apologize to you today. Ashamed, True Lord Crocodile Demon knelt on the ground and kowtowed to Yi Xian. Clearly, he was bidding farewell to Yi Xian. This was something he had been hesitating about for a long time. You have served this emperor for tens of thousands of years. Since you intend to leave, this emperor wishes you a bright future. Yi Xian showed neither killing intent nor anger. With a wave of his hand, he summoned Venus Taibai. A 3,000-year-old peach of immortality appeared and he had Venus Taibai personally hand it to True Lord Crocodile Demon. This emperor rewards meritorious deeds and punishes wrongdoings. From this day forth, you are no longer a member of the celestial court. Consider this 3,000-year-old peach of immortality your reward for serving this emperor for tens of thousands of years. You may leave. Chapter 725. Celestial Emperor, I. True Monarch Crocodile Demon's eyes reddened. He had never expected Yi Xian to give him a peach of immortality even though he had already expressed his intention to leave. Go. If you join the ancient demon court in the future, you will be an enemy of the celestial court. I will not take into account our past relationship. I dare not make an enemy of the celestial emperor. From now on, I will live in seclusion in the lower world and will not participate in the battle between the two celestial court. True Monarch Crocodile Demon's eyes were filled with tears as he turned and left the Lingxiao Hall. Old Minister is ashamed to face your Majesty. However, as a member of the demon race, I cannot make an enemy of the ancient demon court. From now on, I will live in seclusion in the lower world. Another demon king bid farewell with a trembling voice. Yi Xian gave him a golden core and allowed him to leave. As the saying went, if there was a first, there would be a second. More and more demon kings stepped forward and bid farewell to Yi Xian. However, all of them had a look of shame on their faces. However, Yi Xian appeared very calm. He gave the golden core and immortality peaches to the demon kings who wanted to leave. Yi Xian did not stop them at all. He even gave them all kinds of treasures and allowed them to leave the celestial court. Soon, hundreds of demon kings bid farewell and left. Only half of the demon kings were left in the Lingxiao Hall. Is there anyone else who wants to leave the celestial court? Yi Xian looked around at the demon kings present. Celestial Emperor, I have been following you since the North Continent. Although the ancient demon court is the orthodox demon race, I, the sky-devouring toad, do not know who Dong Huang Tai and Di Jun are. I will never leave you. The sky-devouring toad roared and turned to look at his brother, who was also one of the 10 demon kings of the Tongtian Ridge. What are you waiting for? Either continue to follow the Celestial Emperor or get out of the Celestial Court. What are you talking about, big brother? Our cultivation is all thanks to the Celestial Emperor. The ancient demon court did not do us any favors, so we naturally have to follow the Celestial Emperor loyally. King Qing Qiu scolded and directly knelt before Yi Xian. The 10 great monster kings of the past all followed suit and expressed their loyalty to Yi Xian. Your Majesty, although I have never followed you in the lower realm, I, the 9th extreme demon lord, was forced into a corner by the Chan school. If the Celestial Emperor had not taken me in, I would have died at the hands of the Chan school's immortals. Although the ancient demon court is the orthodox demon race, it has not shown me any kindness. I am willing to follow the Celestial Emperor, even if it means becoming enemies with the ancient demon court. The 9th extreme demon lord was once an evil demon. At this moment, he bowed to Yi Xian, and his voice was even more powerful. That's right. Although we are members of the demon race, the ancient demon court has not shown us any kindness. Instead, it was you, the Celestial Emperor, who has nurtured us for tens of thousands of years. If the ancient demon court declares war on the Celestial Emperor, we will definitely follow you to death. The three-eyed evil Immortal was a great monster king of the lower realm. At this moment, he was bowing 3 times to Yi Xian because he was able to break through the Daluo Jingxian because Yi Xian had given him a 6,000-year-old immortal peach. He had never forgotten this kindness. Some monster kings left, while others stayed. Yi Xian nodded slowly, and a satisfied look appeared in his eyes. The monster king Yi Xian, who had left, was not angry at all. This was because Yi Xian knew very well that the ancient demon court was the orthodox demon race. Moreover, they had the support of Nuwa, a saint of the demon race. It was naturally difficult for them to be stuck in the middle. The people who stayed were the most loyal to Yi Xian. They were also the people who could truly be used by Yi Xian. Yi Xian naturally would not treat them unfairly. At this moment, the Jie school lineage was hesitant. Half of the Celestial Court's monster kings had left. It seemed like the Celestial Court's strength had been greatly reduced, but this was actually a good thing. This was because Yi Xian had to follow orders. If he really waited for the Celestial Court to declare war on the ancient demon court, these monster kings who had left might very well become a hidden danger. Perhaps they would give Yi Xian a fatal blow. Yi Xian had to plan ahead and take everything into account. This was because one had to settle the internal situation before dealing with external threats. This was the method that a superior should have. Alright, since you are willing to continue following me, I will naturally not treat you unfairly. In 10,000 years, the ancient demon court will start the myriad demon meet. I want you to quickly improve your cultivation in these 10,000 years. Be it the immortal peach or the golden core, as long as it can improve your cultivation, I will give it to you. Yi Xian paused and looked directly at Grand Supreme Elder, Kuan Peng, and the others. Fellow Taoists, you are all sage to be and have great divine abilities. In the next 10,000 years, I will have to trouble you to teach the monster kings present. Yes, your majesty. Kuan Peng bowed, showing that he was duty-bound. Grand Supreme Elder and Kong Xian nodded in agreement. Obviously, when the myriad demon meet started 10,000 years later, the demons of the 3 realms would be loyal to the ancient demon court. The battle between the celestial court and the ancient demon court was unavoidable. The 3 sage-to-be had to teach the monster kings of the celestial court in the next 10,000 years. This was also to improve the cultivation and strength of the celestial court. Court is dismissed. As Venus Taibai's voice sounded in the Lingshao Hall, the immortals of the celestial court took their leave. However, Shen Gongbao and the other immortals of the Jia sect were bewildered. Shen Gongbao even wanted to talk to Yi Xian, but Yi Xian had already left the Lingshao Hall. Obviously, the attitude of the Jia sect was unclear. This was not the result that Yi Xian wanted. Even if Shen Gongbao explained it to him, it could not solve the fundamental problem. As for whether the Jia school should stay in the heavenly court, the only person who could make the decision was the Grand Master of Heaven. Outside the 33rd heaven, in the aquamarine palace, the sea of stars was turbulent, and the big stars were rotating. Yi Xian strolled in the luminous starry sky. With every step he took, he covered a distance of 10,000 miles. Until he stood in front of the aquamarine palace, there was no aura around him. Rumble. The door of the aquamarine palace opened with a rumble. Two Taoist children walked out of the door and bowed to Yi Xian. The patriarch knew that the celestial emperor was coming and ordered us to welcome you. Please. The two Taoist children opened the door and made an inviting gesture to Yi Xian. This also made Yi Xian nod and enter the aquamarine palace with a calm expression. In the aquamarine palace, the aura of chaos flowed endlessly, and the misty holy light rippled endlessly. There was nothing in the surroundings except for a green lotus floating in the void. On the green lotus, there was a stalwart figure sitting cross-legged. Tap, tap, tap. The sound of unhurried footsteps could be heard. Yi Xian walked along the bluestone path until he stopped. Then he looked at the person on the green lotus. Greetings, Tong Tian. Yi Xian cupped his hands and bowed. His posture was neither humble nor arrogant. You're finally here. Tong Tian's holy light covered his body, and he let out a long sigh. Hierarch knows why I'm here, Yi Xian said calmly. Yi Xian, you should know that you're walking the path of proving Tao with strength. Although this method does make your battle strength heaven-defying, a sage to be is only a sage to be. It's impossible for you to become a sage to be. The Jia sect was created by me, so. Tong Tian sighed and did not continue. Chapter 726. Obviously, ever since Tong Tian learned that Yi Xian was using strength to prove his Tao, he had some doubts about Yi Xian being the seventh saint of heaven. Furthermore, Nuwa had personally visited him, hoping that he could let the Jia sect leave the celestial court. This was because the ancient demon court would fight the celestial court sooner or later. After all, it was impossible for there to be two celestial courts in this world. However, the sky-piercing school was hesitating. He was hesitating about whether or not Yi Xian could become a saint. Although Yi Xian walked the path of using strength to prove his Tao, he could still cultivate the method of becoming a saint through virtue. After all, his senior brother Lao Tzu had started cultivating the three corpses technique, but didn't he change it to merit saint method later? This was the reason why the Jia sect was still in the celestial court. After all, Tong Tian was still not sure if Yi Xian was the seventh saint. Sect Master, are you afraid that the celestial court and the ancient demon court will fight, and the disciples of the Jia sect will be wiped out? Yi Xian said softly. Sigh. Tong Tian sighed. He looked at Yi Xian through the holy light and said, Yi Xian, you should know that my senior brother Yuancher has already let the Chan sect join the ancient demon court. Moreover, the Eastern Emperor Tai and Di Jun are the celestial emperors of the demon race. They also have the support of my junior sister Nuwa. If you don't become a saint, the 33rd celestial court can only disappear. Nuwa, Yuancher. Yi Xian muttered to himself. A smile gradually appeared on his face. Then, he looked at Tong Tian and said, I understand. In that case, let the Jia sect leave the celestial court. After saying that, Yi Xian suddenly turned around and strode out of the aquamarine palace. However, this also stunned Tong Tian. As he waved his palm and fingers, he blocked Yi Xian's path. Yi Xian, are you really going to give up on the disciples of the Jia sect? Tong Tian frowned. Yi Xian did not turn around. He only said in a low voice, "Sect Master, it's not that I, Yi Xian, have given up on Yi Xian. You should know what kind of person I, Yi Xian, am. I can't tolerate any sand in my eyes. You are afraid that the Jia sect will be destroyed in the battle of the Celestial Court. And I, Yi Xian, can't tolerate people with disloyalty." As Yi Xian finished speaking, he walked forward again. From the beginning to the end, he did not look back at Tong Tian. "Yi Xian, give up the Celestial Court. My junior sister and senior brother have already taken action. The rise of the ancient demon court is unstoppable. Even if I continue to support you, you are no match for the Eastern Emperor Tai and the others. Nuwa, Yuanshi." Yi Xian was still walking forward, but his voice was murmuring and cold. "Sect Master, don't worry. If I, Yi Xian, become a saint one day, the first people I will kill will be them. You." As Yi Xian's words entered his ears, Tong Tian was stunned. He looked at Yi Xian's back and was extremely shocked. Kill a saint? It was a simple word, but it contained a heaviness that was as heavy as the heavens. Tong Tian did not dare to imagine it, nor had he ever imagined it. Sages were immortal and immortal. If sages could really be killed, he would have been defeated and had to run away when he fought against the 4 sages. His life was not in danger at all. However, Tong Tian did not expect Yi Xian to be so arrogant. He actually wanted to kill a saint. It was simply a fantasy. It's pitiful and lamentable. I, Yi Xian, really did not expect that Tong Tian, who dared to fight the 4 saints back then, would actually compromise. It seems that even after being tempered by time, sect master's pride in the past has already turned to nothing. Yi Xian sneered contemptuously. His voice reached Tong Tian's ears. It was also at this moment that he finally left Green Touring Palace. However, Tong Tian, who was behind him, instantly fell into a daze because of his words. "Beg for justice." The Grand Master of Heaven paused for a moment as his voice trembled. His eyes were filled with confusion as he looked in the direction Yi Xian disappeared in. His eyes revealed an extremely complicated expression. "I, Tong Tian, am compromising." Tong Tian clenched his fists. The holy light around him was extremely chaotic. Extremely terrifying fluctuations rippled out until it became silent. It caused the entire Green Touring Palace to fall into an indescribable pressure. After leaving Green Touring Palace, Yi Xian crossed the Sea of Stars and returned to the Celestial Court. He had come to Green Touring Palace today to see Tong Tian's attitude. Unfortunately, what disappointed him was that Tong Tian was no longer as arrogant as before. There was no need for him to continue talking to Tong Tian. If a person lost his drive, he would only be reduced to mediocrity. Even saints were no exception. Tong Tian was no longer as valiant as before. Clearly, the investiture of the gods back then had a great impact on him. Although Yi Xian was very disappointed in the Grand Master of Heaven, he didn't blame him. This was because the other party had helped him too much. If he didn't have the help of the Grand Master of Heaven, it would have been extremely difficult for him to grow to his current level. 9 Tribulations of the Heavenly Tao. As long as I can pass through the first 3 tribulations, my cultivation will be comparable to Nuwa and Yuanshi. However, I have just become a sage to be. I still have to face the first tribulation. I'm afraid it will take a very long time. Yi Xian frowned and muttered. When the Myriad Demon Conference began 10,000 years later, the 33rd Heaven Celestial Court would directly oppose the ancient Demon Court. Even if Yi Xian wanted to delay the war with the ancient Demon Court, he should not forget that the ancient Demon Court would never allow the Celestial Court to exist. Moreover, there was a huge problem now. The news that he had obtained the Hongmeng Immortal Vapor could not be hidden for long. The Emperor of Fengdu would not be willing to accept it. He had to face it personally. However, During this trip to the Aquamarine Palace, Yi Xian did not tell Tong Tian that the seventh Hongmeng immortal vapor was in his hands. Perhaps if he told this news to Tong Tian's attitude would change. However, this was not the result that Yi Xian wanted. This was because he walked the path of proving Dao through strength. He had not decided whether to become a sage through merit. At this time, Yi Xian could only put everything aside for the time being. He had to return to the celestial court and go into seclusion to understand the magical effects of the Hongmeng immortal vapor. Only then could he decide what to do next. At the same time, in the ancient demon court, Dong Huangtai sat on the throne of the celestial emperor. Emperor Jun stood side by side with him. Below them, there were thousands of ancient demons standing on both sides. At a glance, it was extremely grand and boundless. It was extremely awe-inspiring. Is Feng Du telling the truth? Dong Huangtai asked with a frown. We don't know if it's true or not. However, this person has made a great oath of the heart demon. Moreover, he does not have the Hongmeng immortal vapor on him. Although he is very suspicious, if Yi Xian has really obtained the Hongmeng immortal vapor, you must take it back from him, Emperor Jun said firmly. Celestial Emperor, the Hongmeng immortal vapor is of great importance. We should quickly send troops to Yi Xian to see if the Hongmeng immortal vapor is on him. Count of Wind stood out from the crowd and said directly to the two celestial emperors. Chapter 727. Heavenly Emperor, the primordial violet qi is of great importance. We should quickly send troops to Yi Xian and see if the primordial violet qi is on him. Count Feng walked out from the crowd and directly spoke to the two heavenly emperors. Count of Wind is right. Let's destroy the celestial court first. If the Hongmeng immortal vapor is not with Yi Xian, then it must be with Feng Du. When the time comes, the ancient demon court will send troops to the underworld to take back the Hongmeng immortal vapor, Count of Rain said solemnly. As the two spoke, the ancient demons all chimed in. However, Dong Huangtai seemed to be deep in thought and did not make a decision immediately. Brother, what do you think? Emperor Jun asked. As Emperor Jun spoke, the ancient demons fell silent again. Everyone's eyes were focused on Dong Huangtai. Obviously, this matter was up to him to decide. Let's put this matter aside for now. Don't act rashly, Dong Huangtai said after 3 breaths. He had finally made a decision. Why? Emperor Jun's expression changed slightly. The demons' conference has not started yet. Billions of demons have not submitted. We can only wait for the conference to start and for Nuwa to come to the ancient demon court. Only then can the ancient demon court legitimately become the master of the 3 realms. Moreover, all of you should know that regardless of whether it's Yi Xian who obtained the primordial violet qi or Feng Du who obtained the primordial violet qi, even if the primordial violet qi is in the hands of one of them, it's impossible for them to become a saint within 10,000 years. Now that the ancient demon court has been established, if we send troops to Yi Xian and the underworld now, it's not justifiable. We can only wait until the demons' conference is over and the ancient demon court regains control of the 3 realms. At that time, we can take advantage of the situation. Dong Huangtai's mind was clear. He was not blinded by the Hongmeng immortal vapor. Obviously, this was the best choice for the ancient demon court. You're right, big brother. I was too anxious. Emperor Jun suddenly came to his senses. Not far away. It's really not far away. 10,000 years will pass in the blink of an eye. After the myriad demon meet begins, the demon clan will regain control of the world. Everyone will have to submit to the ancient demon court. Dong Huangtai placed his hands behind his back and looked at the world in all directions. His eyes flickered with a bright demonic light. The ancestral land of the sorcerer tribe, in the chaotic void. 6 stalwart figures sat in the air with their legs crossed. Beams of terrifying ancestor Magus divine light rose into the sky. Zhurong, is what you said true? The Hongmeng immortal vapor has really appeared. Ancestor of sorcerer Dongfang Mu frowned and asked Zhurong. That's right. The primordial violet vapor has indeed appeared. I just don't know if it's in the hands of Yi Xian or Fengdu. Zhurong nodded gently. The Hongmeng immortal vapor is of great importance. It's related to the birth of the seventh sage. Although the Wu tribe has no fate with the position of sage, it can't fall into the hands of others easily. Ancestor of sorcerer Xian Ming said in a low voice. Yi Xian has killed tens of thousands of people of the Wu tribe. Why don't we go to the celestial court in person? First, we can seek justice from him. Second, we can see if the Hongmeng immortal vapor is with him. Ancestor of sorcerer Chang Lianglei was the most easily angered. At this moment, he was roaring. His body was flashing with ancestor sorcerer divine thunder, and the boundless void was faintly collapsing. No, the ancient demon court is about to start the myriad demon meet. They are the biggest enemy of the Wu tribe. If we start a war with Yi Xian first, the Wu tribe will have to pay a certain price even though Yi Xian is no match for us. Wouldn't we be letting Dong Huangtai and Emperor Jun take advantage of us? Tianhao, the ancestor of sorcerer of wind, had the most easygoing temperament. He could be said to be unparalleled in wisdom. At this moment, he clearly pointed out the hidden dangers. It's a pity that only the 6 of us ancestors of sorcerer have appeared. If we can gather the 12 ancestors of sorcerer, who will the Wu tribe fear in this world? Zhurong let out a long sigh. A hint of unwillingness flashed through his eyes. Back then, you and Gonggang were not on good terms. The battle between the two of you was earth-shattering. You even knocked down Mount Buzhou. This directly caused the Wu tribe to have internal and external troubles. It also made the other brothers feel sad. If Dijiang and the Candle Dragon were here, why would we have to fear so many things? Ancestor of sorcerer Tianhao sighed. Dijiang and the Candle Dragon possess the power of space and time. It's a pity that their whereabouts are unknown. However, I think when the myriad demon meet starts, the 2 of them will definitely come back when they hear the news. By then, the Wu tribe will have no enemies to fear, Go Mang said softly. The few ancestors of sorcerer sat cross-legged in the void. From their conversation, it could be heard that the 12 ancestors of sorcerer of ancient times were not united. There were also unknown disputes among them. The ancient demon court and the Wu tribe feared each other. This gave Yi Xian a chance to breathe. Otherwise, if the 2 terrifying forces came to the celestial court, it would be difficult for Yi Xian to deal with them. At the same time, a shocking news that caused the 3 realms to be in chaos spread. It completely ignited the fuse of the 3 realms and made the living beings of the 3 realms feel an extremely oppressive atmosphere. The primordial violet vapor had appeared. A few simple words were so heavy that it made people unable to breathe. It made many people go crazy because of this news. The news came from the Emperor of Fengdu of the underworld. According to him, the primordial violet vapor was in Yi Xian's possession. Anyone who wanted to get the primordial violet vapor should go to the celestial court and ask for it from Yi Xian. A stone stirred up 1,000 ripples. This news was like a heavy bomb that caused the 3 realms to be in chaos. Many sage-to-be figures came out one after another to inquire about the primordial violet vapor. As the saying went, the truth could not be concealed. Moreover, the Emperor of Fengdu added fuel to the fire. Many sage-to-be went to the underworld and learned everything about the primordial violet vapor from him. Yi Xian became the target of public criticism and the living beings of the 3 realms focused their attention on him. Of course, as the instigator, the Emperor of Fengdu did not have it easy because the other sage-to-be were not stupid. They even suspected that the primordial violet vapor was in his possession. Although the Emperor of Fengdu was badly battered, he had already smashed a broken jar. Since he could not get the primordial violet vapor, then he, Yi Xian, should not think about getting it either. He wanted to kill Yi Xian with the help of the sage-to-be so that he could vent the hatred in his heart. The underworld, The 18 Levels of Hell. The souls of the dead were wailing and the chilly wind was bleak. There were also the angry roars of demons mixed with a murderous aura that made people feel extremely terrified. Even in such a terrifying illusion, a Buddha light bloomed in the depths of the 18 Levels of Hell. A bodhisattva with a peaceful face was reciting Buddhist scriptures in a low voice. Master, the primordial violet vapor has appeared. Are you really indifferent? Di Ting was the spiritual beast under Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva. It was a unique spiritual beast in the world. Its spiritual ears could hear everything. Its ability was definitely unique in the three realms. The chanting stopped. Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva placed his palms together. He sat cross-legged on the golden lotus and slowly opened his eyes. However, there was no fluctuation in his eyes. Chapter 728. As long as hell is not empty, I swear not to become a Buddha. That was my great wish all those years ago, and also my path to sainthood. It's just that I don't know if the primordial violet vapor is in the hands of Fengdu or Yi Xian. I'm afraid neither of them would give it to me even if I ask for it. Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva sighed. Master, I've used my divine ability to listen to the movements of the three realms. The Emperor of Fengdu does not have the primordial violet vapor, and it seems that it should be in the hands of Yi Tiandi. With your current cultivation, even Yi Xian would not be your match if you forcefully take it. The Harkin said. Amitabha. Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva raised his Buddhist name high and said with a sorrowful expression, that celestial Emperor Yi used to be a little immortal to become a sage to be today. He's not as simple as you think. Even though I've cultivated Buddhism to the highest level, I'm not sure I can get the Hongmeng immortal vapor from him. Moreover, I'm a Buddhist. I can't steal from him. Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva said softly. However, the primordial violet vapor is the key to sainthood. I can't give it up either. It's time to meet Yi Tiandi. Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva murmured softly. He did not do anything, but a ring of Buddhist light bloomed around him. A monk in white cassock separated from his body, and he looked exactly like him. Amitabha. The white-robed monk chanted the Buddhist name, and the door to the earth immortal realm opened. As he put his palms together and strolled in, he disappeared from the 18 layers of hell. Underworld, unholy sea of blood. The sea of blood was surging, and the sinister winds of the world were howling violently on both sides of the sea of blood. Streaks of blood were wreaking havoc in the sky, and there were untold numbers of blood shadows bobbing in the sea of blood, with eerie laughter echoing from time to time. The two murderous weapons were called Yuan Tu and Avici. They were killing swords, the most powerful killing weapons below the four immortal slaying swords. Even a demi-saint who was slain by these two swords would face the danger of death. The Yuan Tu sword and Avici sword floated above the blood sea. The Nether River Patriarch sat cross-legged in the void, his body shrouded in blood-red light. He did not speak or move, but the aura around him was oppressive and intimidating. You are only one step away from becoming a saint. This item should belong to you. Shiva quietly appeared and bowed to Nether River Patriarch. Hongmeng Purple Chi has appeared. You are only one step away from becoming a saint. This item should be yours. Ha! Suddenly, the Nether River Patriarch laughed out loud. His laughter caused the Nether Blood Sea to churn violently. He stood up at that moment, and an extremely terrifying aura bloomed around him. I've asked Fengdu before. According to him, the primordial violet vapor is with Yi Xian. I don't think he's lying. It seems like I have to go to the Celestial Court personally to meet Yi Xian, Ancestor Nether River said solemnly. With your cultivation, even a saint would not be able to kill you. Who among the pre-saints could be your opponent? The Hongmeng Immortal Chi will definitely belong to you. Shiva flattered. As long as the blood sea did not dry up, Nether River would not die. This was not just a saying. It was an extremely terrifying thing. Among the pre-saints, the Nether River Patriarch was definitely one of the strongest. His strength was not reflected in his cultivation. In terms of cultivation alone, he was slightly inferior to Di Jun. The most terrifying thing about the Nether River Patriarch was that he could not be killed. He was an immortal existence. Even if a saint wanted to kill him, it would be a very troublesome matter. Only by destroying the Nether Blood Sea could the Nether River Patriarch die. This was because the Nether Blood Sea was his origin. It could be said that the Nether Blood Sea was him, and he was the Nether Blood Sea. The Nether Blood Sea was formed by the tainted blood of the great god Pangu, and the Nether River Patriarch was born from it. He was born extremely powerful and was an extremely difficult person to deal with. Even the various forces did not dare to offend him. Rumble. On this day, the Nether Blood Sea was overturning. The Nether River Patriarch walked out from it. This was the first time he walked out of the Nether Blood Sea in countless years and truly appeared in the three realms. The world was in chaos, and the pre-saints had appeared. It was extremely difficult to see a pre-saint in the three realms. However, when the news of the Hongmeng Immortal Vapor's appearance spread, many pre-saints appeared in the world. This also proved how important the Hongmeng Immortal Vapor was to the pre-saints. Outside the 33rd heaven, under the Bodhi tree, the two saints of the west. Yuanshi Tianzuan of the Hollow Jade Palace, Lao Tzu of the Eight Visions Palace, Tong Tian of the Aquamarine Palace, and Her Highness Nuwa of the Nuwa Palace. The six saints were all watching. They were heavenly path saints, and had a vague feeling that the seventh heavens will saint was about to appear. However, they did not know who this person was. However, the appearance of the Hongmeng Immortal Vapor made the six saints understand that the great calamity of the world was about to begin. Because the Hongmeng Immortal Vapor had appeared at this moment, and the shamans and demons had also appeared. A massacre was unavoidable. The seventh heavens will saint was about to appear, and the other saints could not easily interfere. If any of their decisions resulted in bad karma with the seventh heavens will saint, it was definitely not the result they wanted. The 33rd Celestial Court, in front of the southern heavenly gate. Thousands of auspicious clouds surged. Shen Gongbao carried the celestial ending sword on his back, and behind him were many immortals from the Jie sect. At this moment, all of them were standing in front of the southern heavenly gate. However, Shen Gongbao's expression was extremely gloomy, and there was a hint of guilt in his eyes. Yi Xian was dressed in black, and his gray hair fell behind his head. He did not wear the Celestial Emperor's battle robe, and his attire was very casual. This was his usual attire, and he did not want to change it. The old minister is ashamed to face the Celestial Emperor. Shen Gongbao looked ashamed. He was bowing to Yi Xian because today, he was going to lead the immortals from the Jia sect away from the Celestial Court. This was also the meaning of the Tongtian's message. The Myriad Demon Conference was about to begin, and the ancient demon court regained control of the three realms. The first thing they had to deal with was the Celestial Court. With the strength of the 33rd Celestial Court, they were no match for the ancient demon court. And if the Jia sect continued to follow Yi Xian, their orthodoxy would probably collapse. There is no banquet that lasts forever in the world. It is human nature to meet and part. Go. Yi Xian's expression was calm, and his voice was calm. Ever since he returned to the Celestial Court, he had directly passed down the Celestial Emperor's decree to the three realms. From then on, the Jia sect and the Celestial Court had nothing to do with each other, which led to today's parting. Shen Gongbao slowly removed the celestial slashing sword and offered it with both hands. He said in a sorrowful voice, "Before I left, the sect master asked me to hand the celestial slashing sword to you. This can also allow you to..." Unfortunately, before Shen Gongbao could finish, Yi Xian directly pushed the celestial slashing sword back and interrupted him at this moment. The celestial slashing sword is the most precious treasure of the Jia sect. I can't accept it. Tell the sect master that I appreciate his kindness. Yi Xian will definitely repay the favor that Yi Xian owed him in the past, Yi Xian said softly. Sigh. Shen Gongbao sighed. He knew that Yi Xian would never accept the celestial slashing sword. This also made him bow to Yi Xian again. He wanted to say something to Yi Xian, but he couldn't say it. Chapter 729. Take care, Celestial Emperor. We're leaving. Thousands of words could only be condensed into these 8 words. Shen Gongbao's face was pale as if he had aged a lot in an instant. He called out to the immortals of the Jia sect and rode an auspicious cloud down to the lower world. It was as if they would never meet again after this farewell. Your Majesty, if you want them to stay, they might not really leave. Venus Taibai sighed. It was obvious that the immortals of the Jia school had great respect for Yi Xian in the past 100,000 years. If it wasn't for Yi Xian, the Jia school wouldn't have been able to rise again. This separation wasn't what they wanted. If Yi Xian really did ask them to stay, perhaps half of them would be able to stay in the heavenly court. With a thought, all rivers and mountains have feelings. With a thought gone, the world has no heart. Fate comes together, fate disperses. Let all of this go with the wind. Yi Xian murmured to himself. No one knew what he was thinking. A gentle breeze blew, causing his hair to flutter in the wind. At this moment, he suddenly turned around and returned alone. Bullfighting Palace. The palace gates were tightly shut. There was no one within 10,000 miles. With Bullfighting Palace as the center, there was no one within 10,000 miles. This was because Yi Xian had issued a decree that he would be in seclusion for a period of time. No one was allowed to disturb him. Inside Bullfighting Palace. The palace had no roof. Stars filled the sky. Strands of starlight fell on Yi Xian's body, making him look untainted. He gave off an ethereal temperament. Buzz. The chaotic fog sealed the sky and locked the earth. Yi Xian's hands formed a seal. He directly covered the entire Bullfighting Palace with a radius of 10,000 miles. No aura leaked out. When Yi Xian did all this, he sat cross-legged in Bullfighting Palace. When he waved his hand, the primordial violet chi appeared in his hand. This made him look at it. The key to becoming a saint. A pre-saint coveted it. If there was anything in the world that a pre-saint would risk his life to obtain, then the primordial violet chi would definitely be ranked first. Nothing could compare to it. The primordial violet chi floated in Yi Xian's palm. It was emitting a faint purple light. There were also strands of Tao circulating within it. It gave off a mysterious and hazy feeling. But no matter how much Yi Xian sensed the primordial violet chi in his hand, he could not feel anything different about it. Only the aura within it was obscure and gave him a strange feeling. Bind. Suddenly, Yi Xian formed a seal with both of his hands. A bit of primal chaos mist appeared at the tip of his finger and directly struck towards the primordial violet chi, causing it to undergo an extremely miraculous change. Buzz. The void swayed and rippled. The primordial violet chi roiled and gradually became hazy. The primordial violet chi turned into immortal runes and jumped in the void. Heavenly Tao Law. Yi Xian's expression froze as he looked at the scene before him. He muttered to himself, but before he could recover from his shock, the immortal runes instantly shot towards the center of his brows and fused into the center of his brows. Rumble. Something miraculous happened. When the immortal runes fused into Yi Xian's glabella, the indestructible true spirit in his spiritual sea spun violently. The immortal runes covered his indestructible true spirit, causing his body to undergo a terrifying change. A strand of sacred light spread out from his body. The sacred light was majestic and gradually covered his body. In less than 3 breaths, he was completely submerged in the purple sacred light. A strand of sacred might rippled out from Yi Xian's body. The heavenly Tao law in the void was suppressed. An extremely terrifying aura burst out from Yi Xian's body. It was as if he had turned into a saint at this moment. He had a supreme sacred might that could cover the heavens and earth. It was unimaginable and hard to imagine. The primordial violet chi seemed to have turned Yi Xian into a saint. It gave him a supreme majesty that was not inferior to the 6 great saints. Just the leakage of his aura caused the heavens and earth to distort slightly. At the same time, Yi Xian's consciousness fell into a mysterious space. When he opened his eyes, he saw heavenly Tao immortal runes. Although he did not recognize these runes, he could understand their meaning. The heavens chanted and the heavenly Tao law shook. The deafening sound of the heavenly Tao echoed in Yi Xian's ears. His eyes were slightly dazed and he did not recover for a long time. Rebuild the heavens and earth and you can become a saint. Like the morning bell and evening drum, like a thunderclap, a deafening sound came from the purple space, instantly waking Yi Xian up. Who's talking? Yi Xian's eyes were cold. He kept looking around the purple space, but there was nothing around him. There were no living creatures at all. Only a large number of heavenly Tao immortal runes hovered around him. Heavenly Tao thunder, the path to becoming a saint. Yi Xian muttered to himself. He gradually calmed down and seemed to understand where he was. This should be the space of the primordial violet chi. It contained the heavenly Tao immortal runes. It seemed to be describing the true meaning of becoming a saint. It was extremely mysterious, but it made people feel that the path to becoming a saint was right in front of them. My cultivation. Suddenly, Yi Xian examined himself. He found that he was emitting a sacred light. This sacred light was very similar to the sacred light on Tongtian and Nuwa. Rumble. 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 Yi Xian felt that his cultivation was rising steadily. In just a dozen breaths, he had entered an extremely terrifying realm. Power, endless power, power that could destroy everything. It had never happened before. Yi Xian had never felt that he was so powerful that he was afraid of himself. Crack. Yi Xian closed his 5 fingers. The space-time was instantly crushed in his hand. His indestructible true spirit had already turned into a small person. It was like the legendary saint's soul, something that only a saint could possess. A saint? This is the saint realm? Yi Xian was completely stunned. He was trembling as he murmured. He was very sure that he was in the saint realm at this moment. This was because he felt the heavenly Tao's great power on him. It was as if he could destroy everything in the world with a single thought. Impossible, this is absolutely impossible. How could the grand mist purple chi allow me to directly step into the saint realm? Yi Xian trembled as he roared out loud. His eyes were filled with panic. No, it's fake. Everything is fake. Yi Xian wasn't confused by his own strength. He roared out loud, his eyes blood red as he looked around this mysterious space. He clearly knew that at this moment, only his consciousness had appeared in the grand mist space. His mortal body was still in bullfighting palace. It was impossible for him to become a saint so easily. What's going on here? Yi Xian constantly reminded himself to calm down. Then, he sat down in the grand mist space and pondered over why such a terrifying change would occur to him. After an incense stick of time passed, Yi Xian spat out a mouthful of turbid air. His expression calmed down and a trace of enlightenment appeared in his eyes. Chapter 730. What a great primordial violet chi, what a great arrangement of the heavenly Tao. It was like a dream, or perhaps he had just woken up from a dream. A self-mocking smile appeared at the corner of his mouth, but there was great hesitation in Yi Xian's eyes. The truth was revealed, everything was revealed. This was a space formed by the primordial violet vapor. Yi Xian had indeed sensed the power of a saint. Furthermore, the heavenly Tao thunderous voice had pointed out the direction of becoming a saint through merit, allowing him to sense the power of a saint in advance. Powerful, he was indeed very powerful. Saints were terrifyingly powerful. At this moment, Yi Xian could completely feel that he had never been this powerful before, because in this independent space, he indeed had the cultivation of a saint. However, Yi Xian was not bewitched by this power, but he also fell into extreme hesitation. Should he give up on using strength to prove his Tao, and directly switch to the path of virtue to become a saint? Re-establishing the heavens and earth meant that he could become a saint. These simple words were the thoughts that the primordial violet vapor conveyed to him. As long as he made a grand wish of the heavens and earth to establish a great sect with the aim of quelling the conflict of the three realms, then he could rely on the primordial violet vapor to become a saint and become the seventh heavenly Tao saint. A choice was placed in front of Yi Xian. As long as he made a grand wish like the 6 great sages in the past, he would be able to use the Hongmeng immortal qi to become a sage and stand on equal footing with the 6 great sages. The 3 realms had been in conflict for a long time. The great war of the shamans and demons had settled their grudges. The 3 realms of heaven, earth, and man each had their own way of governing. If Yi Xian was willing to make the great wish of heaven and earth and was willing to quell the chaos of the 3 realms, he would be able to obtain great merit and karma and directly become a saint. A saint. It was a very tempting word. Even Yi Xian could not remain indifferent. As long as he was willing, he could immediately become a saint. The so-called ancient demon court of the witch tribe would not be in his eyes. Even if the 6 great saints saw him, they would have to respectfully address him as fellow Taoist. What a powerful force! Yi Xian's expression was extremely intoxicated. He could completely feel how powerful he was at this moment, and he was even more tempted by this power of his own, as if he had fallen into a state where he could not extricate himself. Open! Yi Xian said softly. His Dharma eyes flickered with sacred light, directly illuminating the heaven, earth, and man realms, and all the living beings of the 3 realms appeared in his mind. A pair of sacred eyes of heaven and earth pierced through the void and saw through the void. Yi Xian even saw the Nether River Patriarch, who was traveling through the void, and a white-robed monk walking towards the heavenly court. However, at this moment, Yi Xian did not react at all. He was already intoxicated by the power of a saint. When the holy light in his eyes dissipated, he became extremely silent. Temptation, a great temptation. This was the temptation of the sage realm for Yi Xian. Unfortunately, this isn't the power I want. Suddenly, Yi Xian raised his head, and the intoxicated expression on his face had disappeared. A fierce light flashed through his eyes, and an extremely terrifying divine light blossomed from his body. Scram! His roar shattered mountains and rivers, and the void exploded. Yi Xian roared savagely, and a wisp of chaotic mist appeared around him, violently forcing out the purple sacred light in his body. Ah! A pain worse than death was inflicted on Yi Xian's undying true spirit, as if 10,000 arrows had pierced through his heart and were being bitten by ants. The heavenly Tao immortal characters that were originally entwined around his undying true spirit stuck to it like maggots. At this moment, Yi Xian wanted to force them out of his body, and he immediately suffered a terrible calamity. You want to enslave me? Even if Hong Jun comes in person, it's impossible. Yi Xian roared savagely, and large beads of sweat appeared on his forehead. This also proved how much pain he had suffered. The so-called virtuous sage was an act of self-destruction, because this kind of sage had to be below the heavenly Tao, and even more so, they had to rely on heaven and earth to live. If Yi Xian really chose to virtuous sage, he would be suppressed by the heavenly Tao, and he would have to respectfully address Tao ancestor Hong Jun as his teacher. This was definitely not the path Yi Xian wanted to choose. In the past, when Yi Xian was still weak, he had sworn an oath that he would stand above the 9 heavens and look down on all living things. He would become the sage of all living things, and no one would be able to suppress him. Today, the changes in the primordial violet vapor had pointed out the path to virtuous sage, but this was not what Yi Xian wanted. Heaven and earth could be destroyed, but he would not be destroyed, and all things could decay, but he would not be immortal. This was the path Yi Xian wanted to walk. Scram! Suddenly, Yi Xian roared like thunder. He suddenly opened his eyes, and his consciousness returned to his physical body. The space between his eyebrows glowed, and his undying true spirit trembled violently. The immortal character formed by the primordial violet vapor was forced to retreat. Qi! 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 The heavenly Tao immortal character withdrew from Yi Xian's sea of consciousness, and once again turned into primordial violet vapor, floating in front of Yi Xian. The purple sacred light on his body also dissipated without a trace. Huff! 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 Yi Xian panted heavily, and large beads of sweat dripped onto the ground of the bullfighting palace. It was as if he had experienced a life and death battle, and even his face was extremely pale. What a primordial violet vapor! It almost made me give up on my own Tao and Tao. Yi Xian clenched his fists, and his eyes were filled with hostility. An extremely violent desire arose in his heart, and he wanted to destroy the primordial violet vapor in his hands. In the end, Yi Xian did not destroy the primordial violet vapor, because it was related to the seventh heaven-ordained saint. Even if he did not want to become a saint through merit, this item would still be of great use to him. Yi Xian spat out a mouthful of turbid air, and he kept calming himself down. After dozens of breaths, Yi Xian finally calmed down. The sudden appearance of the primordial violet qi is already an extremely strange matter. Just now, it almost made me destroy my own method of using strength to prove my Tao. I'm afraid this isn't as simple as I imagined. Yi Xian muttered to himself. His voice was extremely cold, and his eyes were filled with thought. Yuan Ling. Yi Xian thought of a person. It had been 100,000 years since he entered the Earth Immortal realm, but Yuan Ling had never appeared. Even now that he had become a sage-to-be, there was still no trace of Yuan Ling. After spending 4 years together in the human world, although the elemental spirit was well hidden, Yi Xian was still able to understand some of the elemental spirit's nature. Yuan Ling was a sinister and cunning person, and he was also a very shrewd person. Yi Xian understood this very well, and he was even more certain that Yuan Ling would not do nothing. Perhaps the primordial violet vapor had a lot to do with him. Suddenly, when Yi Xian connected the primordial violet vapor with Yuan Ling, his expression changed abruptly, and his eyes darkened, as if he had thought of something. How is this possible? Yi Xian whispered in horror. He was actually fantasizing that the primordial violet vapor could be Yuan Ling's doing, and that he wanted him to destroy his Tao by strength? Impossible, absolutely impossible. If Yuan Ling really has the primordial violet vapor, why doesn't he become a sage-to-be? Yi Xian made a bold guess, and he was even more pondering this question. Unfortunately, no matter how Yi Xian guessed, he did not get an answer. Moreover, this was only his guess, and the primordial violet vapor might not be Yuan Ling's doing. Chapter 731. Ever since he entered the Earth Immortal realm, Yi Xian had constantly encountered powerful enemies from all sides. However, he had never forgotten the existence of Yuan Ling. In his heart, he even regarded Yuan Ling as a sage. If he had to make a comparison between a sage and Yuan Ling, Yi Xian was more afraid of Yuan Ling. This was because even a sage did not know of his existence. Furthermore, he was plotting a chessboard of heaven and earth. Even a sage was within his calculations. A person who dared to scheme against a sage was undoubtedly extremely frightening and mysterious. This was the reason why Yi Xian attached so much importance to Yuan Ling Fu. Yi Xian exhaled a mouthful of turbid air once more. He shook off his troubled thoughts and could only temporarily suppress the threat of Yuan Ling. This was because there were 2 quasi-saints heading towards the celestial court. This was also a problem he had to face. Just now, when he was in the primordial air, Yi Xian felt the power of a sage. He also saw the Nether River ancestor and the white-robed monk heading towards the celestial court. Obviously, both of them were here for the primordial violet vapor. Although Yi Xian had never seen the Nether River ancestor, he was the only one in the three realms who possessed the blood chi that could move the Tongtian ground. As for the white-robed monk, Yi Xian guessed that he should be a quasi-saint of Buddhism. Since he dared to come to the celestial court alone, he was obviously not an easy person to deal with. Celestial Emperor. Suddenly, Venus Taibai's panicked voice came from outside the bullfighting palace. If one listened carefully, one would find that his voice was trembling uncontrollably. Fellow Taoists, please wait for me at the Jade Pool. Yi Xian already knew that the two quasi-saints had entered the celestial court without needing Venus Taibai to report. Yes, Celestial Emperor. Venus Taibai wiped the cold sweat from his forehead and hurriedly left the bullfighting palace. Jade Pool, Celestial Court. Venus Taibai had a fawning smile on his face as he stood in the middle of the Jade Pool and looked at the two quasi-saints. However, the two quasi-saints were sitting cross-legged without saying anything, which made Venus Taibai a little nervous. The Nether River Patriarch's body was shrouded in blood-red light. Strands of obscure ripples were released around him, causing the void around him to faintly echo with the cries of ghosts and howls of gods. His hair was silver-white, and his face was like jade. He looked like a young man, but his eyes were blood-red, and he gave off an extremely evil feeling. He was definitely not as simple as he looked. The white-robed monk looked extremely peaceful. He was sitting cross-legged with his palms clasped together. A string of white jade Buddhist beads was twirling in his hand. He was reciting Buddhist proverbs in a low voice. The white-robed monk was the incarnation of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva. It was also a Dharma body that he had cultivated. Although Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva was in the 18 layers of hell, his Dharma body was no different from him. Everyone says that Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva is merciful and would purge the world of evil. Endless time has passed, and you have been guarding the 18 layers of hell. However, I did not expect that you would covet the primordial violet vapor so much. The Nether River Patriarch sneered again and again, glancing sideways at the white-robed monk with a hint of enmity in his eyes. Both of them were quasi-saints in the underworld. They had interacted many times, and the Nether River Patriarch hated Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva to the core. The 18 layers of hell were right next to the unholy blood sea. Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva's daily recitation of scriptures to purge the souls of the dead, causing the Asura clan he founded to suffer greatly. The two of them had fought countless times, but neither could do anything to the other. Amitabha. The white-robed monk chanted softly. He glanced coolly at the Nether River Patriarch and said in a low voice, "The primordial violet vapor is an item to become a saint. Nether River, your evil aura is too strong. How could you become a saint? What a joke." The Nether River Patriarch abruptly rose to his feet, the Yuan Tu and Avicii swords circling around him. Mournful bloody light shot out of his pores as he glared at Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva with extremely cold murderous intent. If we're talking about slaughter, who knows how many beings have died to the Immortal slaying 4 swords? Tongtian's slaughter is no less than mine, but didn't he still become a saint? The Nether River Patriarch scolded coldly. Tongtian is one of the 3 pure ones. He was even formed from Pangu's Yuan spirit by splitting into 3 parts. He's also Pangu's true lineage and is blessed by the power of the heavenly Tao. He's the destined saint, and you, Nether River, were born from the filth of the unholy blood sea. How could you compare to Tongtian? The white-robed monk said flatly. Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, aren't you afraid that I'll destroy your Dharma body here? The Nether River Patriarch was enraged. His bloody radiance flickered while the Yuan Tu and Avicii swords hummed, as if he would really attack the white-robed monk and kill him on the spot. If you destroy my Dharma body, I'll enter the unholy blood sea and chant sutras for the Asura clan every day. You can try if you don't believe me. The white-robed monk said unhurriedly. You're threatening me? The Nether River Patriarch's eyes were cold. The entire Jade Lake trembled as he took a step forward. Murderous intent and killing intent shot to the skies, and the 33-layered celestial court was abruptly covered in bloody radiance. Unfortunately, the white-robed monk was unmoved by the Nether River Patriarch's might. He continued to chant Buddhist scriptures and chose to ignore the Nether River Patriarch directly. "I'll send you on your way." Who was the Nether River Patriarch? He was a pinnacle elite among demi-saints and an extremely terrifying existence. He was said to be immortal beneath the saints, and because his true form was the unholy blood sea, he was born undefeatable. This time, the white-robed monk had violated his taboo. He wouldn't be the Nether River Patriarch if he didn't kill him here and now. Suddenly, a calm voice echoed from outside the Jade Lake at the critical moment. It made the Nether River Patriarch's breath stop, and the murderous intent he unleashed vanished. "My two friends, please come to the Celestial Court. I apologize for not coming out to meet you." Yi Xian was dressed in black, his gray-white hair hanging behind his head. He was strolling into the Jade Lake, and only stopped when he arrived before the two demi-saints. Ha! Yi Daoyu was just Daoyuo Jinxian back then. When we meet, Yi Daoyu is already a demi-saint. That's something worth celebrating. The Nether River Patriarch laughed out loud. His change in demeanor was simply astonishing. Ba. The white-robed monk put his palms together and said, "Xitagarba greets Yi Tiendi. My two friends, please take a seat." Yi Xian said calmly. The three sat down together, and Venus Taibai quietly left under Yi Xian's signal, leaving only the three of them in the vast Jade Lake. Silence. Silence. When the three of them took their seats, the atmosphere quietly became strange. It was so quiet that one could hear a pin drop. "May I know why my two friends have graced the Celestial Court with your presence?" Yi Xian was the first to break the silence. He looked at the two with a warm smile, as if he really didn't know why the two demi-saints had come to the Celestial Court. The Nether River Patriarch's smile froze when he saw Yi Xian's puzzled look. Then, his eyes turned slightly and he said, "Yi Daoyu, a straightforward person doesn't resort to insinuations. I've heard that the primordial violet vapor has appeared, and that it is in your hands. I've come today to take a look at it." At the same time, the white-robed monk didn't say anything, but he was also looking at Yi Xian. Clearly, he had come for the same reason as the Nether River Patriarch, just not as directly. Chapter 732. Primordial Violet Vapor. Yi Xian exclaimed, then looked at the Nether River Patriarch. "Who told you that, Taoist Nether River? How can I have primordial violet vapor?" Looking at Yi Xian's innocent look, the smile on the Nether River Patriarch's face gradually disappeared. His fingers tapped on the table, making dull sounds. His gaze on Yi Xian gradually turned cold. "Fellow Taoist Yi, listen to my advice. The Hong Meng immortal vapor is of great importance, and countless demi-saints covet it. If you keep it in your hands, you'll only invite trouble. Why don't you give it to me? This way, you can avoid a great calamity," Patriarch Nether River said coldly. "Ha!" Suddenly, Yi Xian laughed. His laughter was extremely wild, and his eyes narrowed as he looked at Patriarch Nether River and said, "Not to mention that I don't have any primordial violet chi, even if the primordial violet chi is really on me, can I take your words today as a threat to me?" "Threat?" The Nether River Patriarch smiled darkly. He looked straight at Yi Xian and said, "I don't mean to threaten you. I'm just telling you the truth." As the Nether River Patriarch spoke, he slowly rose from his seat and strolled in the jade pool. Suddenly, he turned back to look at Yi Xian. A strange smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. "If you insist on thinking that I'm threatening you, then I have nothing to say. However, I hope you can understand that if you don't lend me the primordial violet chi today, I'm afraid I won't leave so easily." It was a blatant threat. He didn't hide it at all. The Nether River Patriarch's words were sharp. He had expected that Yi Xian wouldn't admit that the primordial violet vapor was in his hands. Naturally, he was prepared. "Nether River, it seems that you really don't care about me. Yi Xian rose from the emperor's seat and strolled toward the Nether River. He only stopped when he was 10 feet away from the Nether River Patriarch. However, a murderous intent was locked onto the Nether River Patriarch. Ha! Sensing Yi Xian's killing intent, the Nether River Patriarch wasn't afraid at all. Instead, he laughed wildly and said, Yi Xian, I've already given you some face. Do you think you're a match for me? As long as the blood sea doesn't dry up, the Nether River won't die. Yi Xian's eyes narrowed as he muttered these words. On the other hand, Patriarch Nether River sneered as a trace of complacency flashed through his eyes. It was not that the Nether River Patriarch was arrogant, but he had the ability to do so. He could feel that Yi Xian's cultivation was extremely terrifying, and it gave him a great pressure, which shocked him to the core. Who would have thought that in just a few tens of thousands of years, Yi Xian's cultivation would rise to such a terrifying level? This was simply a fantasy. Unfortunately, the Nether River Patriarch wasn't afraid of Yi Xian at all because Yi Xian was an immortal existence. If the two of them really fought, it would only be Yi Xian who would be defeated and run away. Yi Xian, even a saint wouldn't be able to kill me easily, let alone you. Hand over the Hongmeng Immortal Vapor. You won't be able to keep it at all. The Nether River Patriarch didn't want to fight Yi Xian because he came to the Celestial Court for the Hongmeng Immortal Vapor. Even if he could defeat Yi Xian, it didn't matter to him at all. Yi Xian, when you ascended to the position of Celestial Emperor, I sent someone to give you 3 blood god fruits. You and I have some history, so I hope you'll hand over the Hongmeng Immortal Vapor. When I become a saint in the future, I won't forget your kindness today. The Nether River Patriarch looked at Yi Xian with burning eyes. Nether River, do you really think I can't kill you? Rumble. The heaven and earth were shaking, and the clouds were shaking. Boundless darkness covered the sky, and chaotic mist rolled in the heaven. The blood-red light illuminated the entire sky, and a 10,000-foot-long halberd silently stood in the sky. Yi Xian squinted his eyes and his eyes turned cold. The heaven-destroying halberd shook the sky and released an ancient evil chi. It was as if all living things would be destroyed by this halberd. This is... When the heaven-destroying halberd appeared, the smile on the Nether River Patriarch's face disappeared. His expression instantly became serious because his mind was trembling slightly. This kind of trembling had never happened to him before. It was as if he was being stared at by an extremely terrifying creature, as if he was about to be devoured in the next moment. A chaotic divine weapon? No. Impossible. How could such a legendary item appear? The Nether River Patriarch screamed in his heart. His eyes were frozen and his heart was in turmoil. The blood sea would not dry up and the Nether River would not die. This represented the terror of the Nether River Patriarch and made him invincible. However, the Nether River Patriarch knew very well that all things in the world reinforced and countered each other. How could there be an existence that was truly immortal? Even a saint could be in danger of dying. The Nether Blood Sea was formed by the filthy blood of Pangu. He was born in the early years of the Eldritch Age. In detail, he could be considered a descendant of Pangu. However, he was not recognized by many living things in the 3 realms. If a saint wanted to kill him, as long as his Nether Blood Sea was destroyed, he would die. However, the Nether Blood Sea was endless. Even if there was only a drop left, he could be reborn again. However, all things countered each other. He was not truly immortal. If a saint was determined to kill him, he would be in danger of dying. Other than a saint, there was one other thing that could really kill him. That was a chaotic divine weapon. It was also an item that did not exist in the 3 realms. It was said that Pangu was born from chaos. He was originally a living thing in the chaos. There were too many terrifying things in the mysterious chaos. It was also called a chaotic divine weapon. If he was attacked by a chaotic divine weapon, he would definitely die. This was his only weakness. When he saw the heaven-destroying halberd, the Nether River Patriarch's heart trembled. He guessed that the heaven-destroying halberd was a legendary chaotic divine weapon. Impossible. Other than the Donghuang bell in the Donghuang Taiyi's hands, how could there be another chaotic divine weapon in the world? The Nether River Patriarch's face was pale. He was shouting at Yi Xian. Clearly, he was shocked by the heaven-destroying halberd. At this moment, there was great fear in his eyes. Other than a saint, the Nether River Patriarch was most afraid of Donghuang Taiyi of the demon race. This was because the Donghuang bell in the Donghuang Taiyi's hands was a chaotic divine weapon. The Donghuang bell also had another name, the Bell of Chaos. However, the Nether River Patriarch did not expect that Yi Xian, whom he thought was a sure kill, would have a chaotic divine weapon in his hands. This put him in a dilemma. At this moment, Yi Xian's expression was sinister. He looked at the Nether River Patriarch with a murderous look. If he could really kill the Nether River Patriarch, it would be a wake-up call to the other sage-to-be. It would also save him a lot of trouble. Killing the Nether River Patriarch. Yi Xian had this idea. This was also a warning to the other sage-to-be. It could deter the other sage-to-be from coming to the Celestial Court to ask for the Hongmeng Immortal Vapor. However, Yi Xian was not sure if the Heaven's Destruction Halberd could really kill the Nether River Patriarch. Yi Xian was only half confident. This was because when Yi Xian seized the throne of the Celestial Emperor, he used the Heaven's Destruction Halberd to nail the Jade Emperor to the Southern Heaven Gate. The Jade Emperor was connected to the fate of the Celestial Court. He was also known to be immortal and had the support of the heavenly Dao Dragon Qi. However, he died under the Heaven's Destruction Halberd. Yi Xian's murderous look came and went quickly. Yi Xian kept the Heaven's Destruction Halberd under the surprised gaze of the Nether River Patriarch. He did not fight with the Nether River Patriarch. Obviously, whether Yi Xian could kill the Nether River Patriarch or not, the benefits to him were too small. One should know that the Nether River Patriarch's cultivation was not low. If the two really fought, even if he could kill the Nether River Patriarch, he would be severely injured. Moreover, the ancient demon court would hold the Myriad Demon Conference 10,000 years later. If he was seriously injured, how could he resist the ancient demon court? This was definitely not the result Yi Xian wanted. Chapter 733. The great battle ended in an instant, and the entire Jade Pool regained its silence. However, the Nether River Patriarch's eyes flickered as he looked at Yi Xian in surprise. No one knew what he was thinking. I've underestimated you. The Nether River Patriarch was silent for a while before he suddenly spat out such a sentence. There are many people who underestimate me, but there are also many who fear me. You're definitely not one of them. Yi Xian said indifferently. As an expert among the sage-to-be, the Nether River Patriarch was no ordinary person. Although he was arrogant, he was not ignorant. Yi Xian did not fight him not because he was afraid of him, but because he knew that there would be no result even if they fought. Yi Xian, you're qualified to be on equal footing with me. However, I have to remind you that you can't keep the Hongmeng Immortal Vapor. It will only bring a life and death crisis to you and the Celestial Court. The Nether River Patriarch withdrew his aura and then strolled to Yi Xian. He looked straight into Yi Xian's eyes and said in a deep voice, "You should know that the Celestial Court is an existence that the Eastern Emperor Tai and Di Jun must eliminate after the birth of the ancient demon court. Moreover, the Hongmeng Immortal Vapor is in your hands. Neither the ancient demon court nor the witch tribe will let you go." Looking at the Nether River Patriarch's solemn posture, Yi Xian frowned slightly and said, "What do you want to say to me? Give it to me. Give me the Hongmeng Immortal Vapor. You should know that I'm formed from the Nether Blood Sea. It's extremely difficult for anyone in this world to kill me. As long as I can become a saint, I can promise you that I'll help you destroy the ancient demon court." The Nether River Patriarch said firmly and looked at Yi Xian with an extremely sincere gaze. As the Nether River Patriarch's words fell, the white-robed monk's expression changed drastically. He looked at the Nether River Patriarch with an extremely solemn expression, as if he had gained a new understanding of the Nether River Patriarch. Amit Ba. The white-robed monk slowly stood up and chanted a Buddhist mantra. His expression turned solemn as he looked at Yi Xian. Yi Dao Yu, I don't have much to say. As long as you give me the primordial violet chi, I will personally go to the ancient demon court and resolve the crisis of the celestial court. Clearly, Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva had already thought it through before he left. It was unrealistic to forcefully obtain the primordial violet vapor from Yi Xian. And Yi Xian's greatest danger at the moment was the ancient demon court. He could only use this as a bargaining chip with Yi Xian. At this moment, the two quasi-sages were very sincere. They were definitely not trying to deceive Yi Xian. It was just that Yi Xian's calm demeanor gave people a sense of tranquility. Yi Xian was either silent or deep in thought. This made the two quasi-sages fall silent as well. They were waiting for Yi Xian's reply. After several dozen breaths, Yi Xian finally looked up at the two of them. He said, "The primordial violet vapor is indeed not in my hands. Friends, please leave." Yi Xian directly ordered them to leave. This greatly disappointed the two quasi-sages. They looked at Yi Xian with even more reluctance. However, with Yi Xian's cultivation, it was impossible for them to succeed even if they wanted to. Yi Tiandi, I must remind you that when the Myriad Demon Conference begins 10,000 years later, the ancient demon court will regain control of the three realms. Not only will the two celestial emperors destroy your celestial court, they will also personally ask for the primordial violet vapor from you. If Yi Tiandi wants to survive this crisis, only I can help you. Farewell. The white-robed monk put his palms together. Clearly, he was also giving Yi Xian time to consider. He was the Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva. Not only did he possess great supernatural powers, he was also an extremely difficult person to deal with. However, it was unknown how confident he was that he could help Yi Xian survive this crisis. The Nether River Patriarch sighed as the white-robed monk left. He did not bid farewell to Yi Xian and directly left the celestial court. However, he would not give up on the primordial violet vapor. He had to think of another way. Yi Xian narrowed his eyes as he watched the Nether River Patriarch's departing figure. He seemed to be hesitating about something. Then, a look of determination flashed through his eyes. "Friend Nether River, please wait." Suddenly, Yi Xian spoke softly. The Nether River Patriarch was stunned when he heard Yi Xian's words. Then, ecstasy appeared on his face as he turned to look at Yi Xian. Yi Xian casually struck out a beam of bloody light that shot directly at the Nether River Patriarch. The Nether River Patriarch caught it. When he looked at the object in his hand, he was suddenly stunned on the spot. Nether River Diagram? The Nether River Patriarch enunciated each word clearly as he suddenly looked at Yi Xian. His eyes suddenly turned gloomy as he looked at Yi Xian with great hostility. "Where did you get this? Where is my disciple, Blood River disciple?" The Nether River Patriarch's voice was cold because the Nether River diagram belonged to him. Although it was not a supreme treasure, it represented his identity as a member of the Nether Sea of Blood lineage. It was also a token that he had given to the Blood River Taoist. The Nether River Patriarch had several senior disciples. The Blood River Taoist was his youngest disciple. Although his cultivation was not high, he was the one that the Nether River Patriarch doted on the most. However, after more than 100,000 years, his disciple seemed to have disappeared from the world. Even though he had sent people to search all over the three realms, there was still no news of his disciple. When Blood River Taoist died, he gave this to me and asked me to take it to you. He hoped that you could avenge him, Yi Xian said calmly. In the past, the Blood River Taoist did not want to be enslaved by Yuan Ling in the Blood Sea battlefield and died tragically at the hands of Yuan Ling. Before he died, he gave the Nether River diagram to Yi Xian and told him that as long as he took the Nether River diagram to the Nether River Patriarch, the Nether River Patriarch would help him enter the Daluo Jingxian. However, Yi Xian did not look for the Nether River Patriarch because he was too weak at that time. If the Nether River Patriarch killed him, he would not be able to resist at all. Now that the Nether River Patriarch was here, Yi Xian decided to settle the matter and return the Nether River diagram to its rightful owner. Who killed my Blood River disciple? The Nether River Patriarch was surrounded by a murderous aura and his fists were slightly clenched. Obviously, he valued this disciple of his very much. Otherwise, his emotions would not have fluctuated so much. Moreover, the Blood River Daoist's death was a slap to the Nether River Patriarch's face. He was a sage-to-be, and although his Nether Sea of blood lineage could not be compared to the ancient demon court and the witch tribe, he was not a pushover. However, someone dared to kill his disciple and did not take him seriously at all. How could the Nether River Patriarch not be furious? Yuan Ling. Yi Xian spat out the two simple words. He stared at the Nether River Patriarch, hoping to find some clues from the Nether River Patriarch's facial expression. Unfortunately, Yi Xian was disappointed. The Nether River Patriarch looked confused and obviously had not heard of this person. Who is Yuan Ling? Is he a new sage-to-be? Or is he just a Daluo Jinxian? The Nether River Patriarch asked gloomily. Come and see. Yi Xian's palm and fingers moved like shuttles and Yuan Ling's appearance appeared in the void. The Nether River Patriarch looked over. Chapter 734. This person. I seem to have seen him somewhere before. Patriarch Nether River muttered as he looked at the appearance of the origin spirit. However, when Yi Xian heard it, his expression changed, and the aura around his body fluctuated to the extreme. Think about it carefully. Where have you seen him before? Yi Xian's breathing quickened. Let me think about it. This person is. It's him. Impossible. It's absolutely impossible. How can he still be alive? Suddenly, Ancestor Nether River let out a low roar. His entire body trembled as if he had discovered a huge secret. Who is he? Yi Xian grabbed Ancestor Nether River's shoulder. His eyes were flashing fiercely. He kept shaking Ancestor Nether River's shoulder to show how excited he was. Yi Xian was already disappointed. He thought that Ancestor Nether River did not know who Yuan Ling was and that he was just lucky to draw Yuan Ling's appearance. However, Ancestor Nether River gave him a huge surprise. He actually recognized Yuan Ling. Tell me, who is he? Looking at Ancestor Nether River's shocked expression, Yi Xian roared. His eyes were bloodshot because he was about to know who Yuan Ling was. Ancestor Red Cloud. This person is Ancestor Red Cloud. The Nether River Patriarch finally recovered from his shock and spat out a person's name. However, when Yi Xian heard it, his expression froze. Ancestor Red Cloud? Yi Xian muttered to himself. That's right. It's Ancestor Hongyun. Although it's been a long time and I've almost forgotten about him, I only remembered him today when I saw Hongyun's appearance. Elder Mingi said firmly and confidently. Pangu split the heavens and Hongjun preached the Tao. That year, the primordial world had just been created. There were no saints in the world. I had just taken form from the netherworld blood sea. After countless years, Tao ancestor Hongjun killed the 3 corpses and became a saint. He even announced to the 3 realms that he wanted to preach the Tao in the Purple Cloud Palace. In the Purple Cloud Palace, I met Ancestor Hongyun once. Back then, his cultivation was already extremely high. However, he was easygoing and kind by nature. He never competed with others. Yet, he obtained the 7th Hongmeng Immortal Vapor. But it was also because of this 7th Hongmeng Immortal Vapor that he was besieged by 2 demon race celestial emperors as soon as he walked out of the Purple Cloud Palace. Countless sages-to-be attacked him in secret. That battle was earth-shattering. Ancestor Red Cloud also died tragically between heaven and earth. At that time, Hongmeng Immortal Vapor also disappeared without a trace. I can't be wrong. This person is Ancestor Hong Yun. I can't be wrong. The Nether River Patriarch spoke quickly, but his expression was uncertain. But he is clearly dead. Why would he change his name to Yuanling? At this moment, Yi Xian became silent. It was as if he did not hear the Nether River Patriarch's words. His fists were clenched tightly, and the aura around him was fluctuating to the extreme. Hong Meng immortal vapor is indeed his doing. Suddenly, Yi Xian roared. His eyes shone with a fierce light. He was finally sure that the Hong Meng immortal vapor was something that Yuanling deliberately allowed him to obtain. Tell me, where is Ancestor Hong Yun's foundation? Yi Xian roared loudly at the Nether River Patriarch. Looking at Yi Xian's agitated expression, the Nether River Patriarch frowned slightly. Then, he slowly shook his head and said, I don't know. Legend has it that Ancestor Hong Yun was the first red cloud in the world to take human form. I've never heard of him having any foundation. Moreover, this person only appeared for a short period of time. He only listened to Tao in the Purple Cloud Palace during the early years of the Untainted Land. Then, he died between heaven and earth. No, this can't be right. Suddenly, Yi Xian muttered to himself. This was because he clearly remembered the teachings that Yuanling gave him during the 4 years of the Blood Sea battlefield. Yuanling appeared as an immortal spirit. He was also someone's external incarnation. Moreover, Yuanling once said that his original body did not appear in front of Yi Xian because he was afraid that the sages would notice him. Furthermore, Yuanling was a person who was respected as an ancestor in the 3 realms. To be respected as an ancestor, he must be a person that the living beings in the 3 realms were familiar with. However, Ancestor Hong Yun died tragically between heaven and earth back then. The later generations would not know about him at all. This was obviously contradictory. Is it possible that Ancestor Hong Yun died tragically back then and this red cloud was actually someone's external incarnation? Yi Xian asked in surprise. Now that you mention it, it's highly possible. Back then, I saw Ancestor Hong Yun die under the Bell of Chaos with my own eyes. However, Dong Huang Tai said something strange, the Nether River Patriarch said in a deep voice. What did he say? He offended someone he could not afford to offend. He even returned to the ancient demon court with a long sigh, the Nether River Patriarch said solemnly. Clearly, he had also thought of something extremely terrifying. Yi Xian, you must know that Ancestor Hong Yun was a sage to be. If he was just someone's external incarnation, but he dared to let his external incarnation go to the Purple Cloud Palace to listen to Tao, then this person is too terrifying, the Nether River Patriarch said in a trembling voice. Fog, a great fog. Yi Xian originally thought that he knew Yuanling's true identity, but he was greatly disappointed. If Ancestor Hong Yun was also Yuanling's external incarnation, then who was his original body? How dare he listen to Tao Ancestor Hong Jun, who was already a sage, and even obtained the 7th Hong Meng violet vapor. Yi Xian was now absolutely certain that the Hong Meng violet vapor in his hand was deliberately given to him by Yuanling. Moreover, Yuanling wanted to use it to destroy his path of Tao through strength. Thinking of such a vicious scheme, Yi Xian broke out in a cold sweat. If he had not broken free at the last moment, if he had really chosen to become a sage through virtue, he would have fallen into Yuanling's trap. At this moment, Yi Xian felt extremely horrified. It was as if a pair of eyes were staring at him all the time. If he made a mistake, he would definitely be consigned to eternal damnation. The Eastern Emperor Tai. Perhaps the Eastern Emperor Tai has some understanding of the Yuanling you mentioned, the Nether River Patriarch said in a low voice. Clearly, the conversation with Yi Xian today had frightened the Nether River Patriarch. He felt that he had fallen into a huge trap, and it gave him a sense of extreme danger. This feeling was so strong that it made the Nether River Patriarch's hair stand on end. The Eastern Emperor Tai. Yi Xian muttered to himself as if he had grasped an extremely important clue. At this moment, he also thought of Sun Wukong's warning to him and became even more suspicious of Patriarch Subhuti. The Eastern Emperor Tai, Subhuti. These two people were an extremely important clue. However, Yi Xian was now the focus of everyone's attention. He also had to face the great calamity of the ancient demon court. He simply could not do anything else. Yi Xian, if there's nothing else, I'll take my leave. You're on your own in the future. The Nether River Patriarch already had the intention to leave because he already felt that he had fallen into an extremely terrifying trap. He also found that there were too many suspicious points about Yi Xian. It was better not to get too close to Yi Xian. As for the Hongmeng violet vapor, he could only think of other ways to obtain it. Chapter 735. As Patriarch Nether River spoke, he turned around and was about to leave the heavenly court. However, before he could take 3 steps, Yi Xian's cold voice quietly sounded from behind him. You're leaving just like that? Don't you want the primordial violet vapor anymore? The Nether River Patriarch suddenly turned back, his eyes flashing with a sharp light. The primordial violet vapor is indeed in your hands. Buzz! Yi Xian waved his hand and covered the jade pool so that no one could investigate what was happening inside. The void swayed and rippled. The primordial violet vapor quietly appeared in Yi Xian's hand, giving off a dazzling light that made one feel dizzy. Give me the primordial violet vapor. Rumble. The void exploded and growls rang out. When the primordial violet vapor appeared in front of the Nether River Patriarch, his face flushed red as he lunged at Yi Xian. Bang! Fist and palm collided, shaking heaven and earth. The vast jade pool trembled violently, and cracks appeared in the void, proving how terrifying their attack was. PCHT. The Nether River Patriarch shot back, but Yi Xian was still holding the primordial violet vapor in his hand. Clearly, it was impossible for the Nether River Patriarch to snatch it from him. Yi Xian, give the primordial violet vapor to me. The Nether River Ancestor roared in anger as blood light exploded around him. The phenomenon of the surging blood river rose up, and an extremely terrifying killing intent locked onto Yi Xian's body. Yi Xian didn't release any aura, and his voice was very calm without any ripples. Do you think you can take the primordial violet vapor from me? The Nether River Patriarch's face darkened as Yi Xian's words fell. He was panting heavily, and it was only after a dozen breaths that he slowly dispersed his aura. What do you want? Nether River Patriarch asked coldly. Clearly, the Nether River Patriarch knew that it was unrealistic to forcefully seize the primordial violet vapor. He had only attacked Yi Xian in a moment of excitement. Now that he had come to his senses, he forced himself to calm down. Patriarch Nether River deeply understood that he had just bid farewell and left. However, Yi Xian had taken out the primordial violet vapor himself. Patriarch Nether River would never believe that Yi Xian had no ulterior motives. I can lend you the Hongmeng Immortal Qi. If you can become a saint with the Hongmeng Immortal Qi, it will be your opportunity, Yi Xian said with a smile. Tell me, what are your conditions? Patriarch Nether River wasn't stupid enough to believe that Yi Xian would lend the primordial violet qi to him for nothing, so he spoke in a low voice. I like to deal with smart people, and you are one of them. Yi Xian smiled and nodded. Then, he strolled over to Patriarch Nether River with a strange smile. He looked straight at Patriarch Nether River and said, My conditions are simple. I want you to lead the Azura clan to join the Celestial Court. From now on, the Nether Blood Sea will be a part of the Celestial Court. Impossible. As soon as Yi Xian finished speaking, Patriarch Nether River's expression changed drastically. He immediately refuted without any hesitation. Yi Xian, don't even think about it. After the Demon Conference, the ancient Demon Court will declare war on the Celestial Court. Moreover, you have killed tens of thousands of people from the Wu tribe. The Wu tribe will not let you go. If I lead the Azura clan to join the Celestial Court, won't I be seeking my own death? Patriarch Nether River growled coldly. His expression became extremely ugly. Clearly, he could not agree to such conditions. If he really did agree to Yi Xian, it would undoubtedly be the end of his Nether Blood Sea. Ha! Yi Xian smiled. He really smiled. However, his smile was extremely cold. His gaze towards Patriarch Nether River gradually turned indifferent. Think about it, Nether River. Using the future of your Azura clan in exchange for a chance to become a saint is a better deal for you than this. Yi Xian was talking to himself. The Hong Meng immortal vapor floated in his palm. The misty purple light pierced into Patriarch Nether River's eyes, making his breathing quicken. He could not bear to look away from the Hong Meng immortal vapor. No, absolutely not. Patriarch Nether River clenched his fists and muttered while trembling. Although the Hong Meng immortal vapor was very important to him, he was extremely conflicted to gamble the future of the Nether Blood Sea. Think about it. Become a saint. If you can become a saint, you will be on equal footing with the 6 great saints. So what if the Azura clan is destroyed? Like a demon's whisper, like a devil's temptation, Yi Xian's voice was filled with a soul-stirring demonic power. He did not use any bewitching techniques. He was just stating an ironclad fact. Nether River, countless years have passed. Other than becoming a saint, are other things really that important to you? And don't forget that although the ancient demon court is powerful and has Nuwa behind it, the celestial court also has 4 pre-saints. As long as Nuwa does not act, it will not be so easy for the Donghuang Tai to destroy the celestial court. Yi Xian was persuading slowly. The Hong Meng immortal vapor in his hand seemed to be deliberately stared at by Patriarch Nether River. It was simply an extreme temptation. The ancient demon court is not as simple as you think. Let's not talk about Emperor Jun. He is proficient in all the supreme secret techniques of the demon clan. His great divine powers are unmatched. The Bell of Chaos in the Donghuang Tai is even more terrifying. He is also said to be invincible. No one can defeat him. Moreover, the ancient demons under the 2 demon emperors are all Daluo Jingxian. There are dozens of pre-saints among them. This force is not something your celestial court can resist. And that's not the most important thing. You have to know that the ancient demon court has one of the 3 strongest formations in the world, the Heavenly Cycle Star Formation. When this formation is activated, even saints have to be wary. Moreover, Saint Nuwa has announced to the 3 realms that billions of demons are loyal to the ancient demon court. What ability do you, Yi Xian, have to resist the ancient demon court? Although the Nether River Patriarch coveted the Hong Meng immortal vapor, he was no fool. He was not blinded by greed. As a pre-saint of the primeval age, how could he not know the terror of the ancient demon court? The Cosmic Stars Formation. Facing the Nether River Patriarch's question, Yi Xian muttered in a low voice. Even he could not refute it. The Cosmic Stars Formation was comprehended by the Eastern Emperor Tai from the innate spirit treasure He Tu and Luo Shu. It combined the power of the 365 stars in the sky with the solar star and the lunar star as the eye of the formation. It was incomparably deep and murderous. The 365 cosmic stars, followed by the 108,000 great stars, including the North Star and the Big Dipper. The South Star. The Big Dipper 6 stars. The Big Dipper 4 stars, the Big Dipper 3 stars, and the Middle Dipper 5 stars. There were a total of 5-star duels. In addition, there were the 28 mansions, the heavenly spirits and earthly fiends, the 9 glorious stars, the metal, wood, water, fire, earth stars, and so on. The 365 demon immortals selected by Emperor Jun and Eastern Emperor Tai were all at the peak of the grand heavenly realm. 365 Daluo Jingxian, 2 pre-saints, Emperor Jun, Eastern Emperor Tai, and 10,000 ancient demons. Even a saint would have a hard time against them. The cosmic stars formation was a wondrous formation that could sweep across the primitive universe. Only the 12 divine fiends formation and the immortal slaying sword formation could be on par with it. 365 greater cosmic stars banners were needed to set up this formation, which corresponded to the 365 main stars in the sky. Then, there were 14,800 lesser cosmic stars banners, which corresponded to 14,800 lesser cosmic stars banners, which corresponded to 14,800 lesser cosmic stars banners. Together with the power of 10,000 ancient demons, each representing a star, the cosmic stars formation could be formed with peerless power. The 365 greater cosmic stars banners were the roots, the 14,800 lesser cosmic stars banners were the trunk, and the 10,000 ancient demons were the branches and leaves. With the power of the cosmic stars banners linked together, one could imagine how vast and mighty the formation was. Be it the greater cosmic star banners or the lesser cosmic star banners, each of the banners was completely different and corresponded to different stars. The cosmic stars formation was the formation that protected the ancient celestial court. It was the formation closest to the immortal slaying sword formation. This formation was different from other formations. Other formations, such as the 9 Bends Yellow River Formation and the 10 Ultimate Formations, formed their own formation space that isolated the heavenly secrets from the outside world. However, this formation did not have such a formation space. However, it could lock onto everyone within the formation. Those who were locked onto by it would not be able to escape the fall of the starlight, no matter what kind of divine ability they had. This formation was fused with the outside world and summoned the power of the cosmic stars. The power of the billions of stars was strong enough to destroy the world. Why did the Jia sect immortals leave? Why was Tong Tian so certain that the celestial court would be destroyed? It was because Tong Tian knew that the ancient demon court's foundation was not something that Yi Xian could resist. How is it? Are you afraid? Patriarch Nether River sneered, but his gaze was fixed on the primordial violet vapor. Clearly, he was extremely reluctant to part with it if he could not obtain it. Afraid? Yi Xian's thoughts turned and his lips curled into a sinister smile. There has never been anything in this world that I am afraid of. Since Taoist Nether River is unwilling to join the celestial court with the Nether Sea of Blood lineage, I won't see you off. Suddenly, Yi Xian slowly put away the primordial violet vapor. However, the speed at which he put it into the Sumeru space was extremely slow, and a strange look appeared in his eyes. At that moment, the Nether River Patriarch's face was extremely purple. He stared at the primordial violet vapor in Yi Xian's hand with great hesitation in his eyes. Where was the mockery he had towards Yi Xian just now? Clearly, Yi Xian was forcing the Nether River Patriarch to make a decision. He wanted him to gamble the future of the Nether Sea of Blood lineage. Either join the Celestial Court, and the primordial violet vapor would be lent to Nether River to comprehend. If he could become a saint, all the problems would no longer be a problem. The second choice was for the Azura clan of the Nether Sea of Blood to stand side by side with the Celestial Court. If the Celestial Court died, the Azura clan would die. This was a gamble, and a huge one at that. As for whether the Nether River Patriarch wanted to gamble, it was all up to him. At that moment, the primordial violet vapor was gradually entering the Sumeru space and was about to disappear before the Nether River Patriarch's eyes. Just as the Sumeru space was about to close, the Nether River Patriarch's sorrowful voice rang out. All right, I agree. The Nether River Patriarch roared, his eyes bloodshot. In the end, he could not resist the temptation of becoming a saint and chose to compromise with Yi Xian. Chapter 736. Becoming a Saint. This was the Nether River Patriarch's greatest dream. Nothing could compare to becoming a saint, even if it meant risking the future of the Nether Blood Sea. What happened next was very simple. The Nether River Patriarch joined the Celestial Court and became the 5th demi-saint. He quietly opened a door that led to the Nether Blood Sea where the Azura tribe resided. Yi Xian made it very clear to the Nether River Patriarch that the primordial violet vapor would only be lent to him and not given to him. If the Nether River Patriarch couldn't become a saint, then the primordial violet vapor would have to be returned to Yi Xian. The Nether River Patriarch agreed without hesitation. Regardless of whether he could become a saint or not, the primordial violet vapor would be useless to him in the future. Becoming a saint was naturally good, but if he couldn't, then the primordial violet vapor would be useless to him as well. Since then, the Nether River Patriarch went into seclusion in the Celestial Court. Before he went into seclusion, he issued a decree to the Nether Blood Sea. No one knew that the Nether Blood Sea had joined the Celestial Court. Bullfighting Palace, on the Imperial Couch. As the saying goes, absence makes the heart grow fonder. Yi Xian was also a man who had left the Celestial Court tens of thousands of years ago. Now that he had settled down a little, he naturally did some unspeakable things with the Empyrean Fairy. It was deep into the night and the candlelight flickered. The Empyrean Fairy's face was flushed as if she had fallen asleep. Her face was full of happiness, but there was a hint of fatigue between her brows. At this moment, Yi Xian rose from the imperial couch and casually put on his black robe. He then strolled off the bed and walked out of the bullfighting palace. The moon hung high in the night sky, dotted with stars. A cool breeze blew past, stirring up waves. The stars scattered their silver splendor, making the entire bullfighting palace untainted by a speck of dust. It gave people a feeling of unparalleled beauty. Yi Xian stood alone under the stars of the heavens. He raised his head to look at the sky, his eyes drifting about. The hair that hung behind his head rippled in the breeze, and his entire body emitted a heavy aura. Heavenly Cycle Star Formation. Yi Xian muttered to himself. His calm expression gradually turned serious as he began to mumble. In front of the Nether River Patriarch, Yi Xian appeared very strong and confident. It was only in the dead of the night when he was alone that his heavy emotions were exposed. Just as the Nether River Patriarch had said, the ancient demon court was extremely powerful. It was not something that the Celestial Court could resist. When the Myriad Demon Conference began, they would definitely attack the Celestial Court. Whether it was for the primordial violet chi or for the ancient demon court, the two celestial emperors of the demon race would never tolerate the existence of Yi Xian and the Celestial Court. The Celestial Court had 5 demi-saints. Each of them had extraordinary battle prowess. However, the ancient demon court had 2 celestial emperors and dozens of demi-saints. There was also the Heavenly Cycle Star Formation, which was the most terrifying. As the saying goes, one can know the whole leopard from a single spot. Back then, Yi Xian had seen Qiyu summon the 12 divine fiends' capital formation. With just a glance, Yi Xian knew that this formation was extremely terrifying. It was not something that he could resist. Although the massive Heavenly Cycle Stars formation could not compare to the massive 12 Divine Wraith formation, the massive Heavenly Cycle Stars formation was known as one of the 3 ultimate formations of the heavens and earth. Donghuang Tai was a huge problem. Moreover, he had the Donghuang Bell and was in an invincible position. If he activated the Heavenly Cycle Star formation, how could the Celestial Court resist? If you don't want to be weaker than others, you have to have the same means to resist. However, how can the Celestial Court resist the Heavenly Cycle Star formation of the ancient demon court? Yi Xian frowned. He was stumped by this problem. Preparing for a rainy day and anticipating the enemy's moves had always been Yi Xian's principle. If he did not make sufficient preparations, he would have died many times over. Hoping that the Nether River Patriarch would become a saint. This was not realistic. Although Yi Xian had lent the primordial violet chi to him, Yi Xian did not expect the Nether River Patriarch to become a saint at all. If one could become a saint by obtaining the primordial violet chi, there would be no such thing as the destined saint. Thud, thud, thud. A series of light footsteps came from behind Yi Xian. This also brought Yi Xian back to reality. He did not need to look to know who it was. Are you worried about the ancient demon court? The Empyrean fairy walked behind Yi Xian and gently draped a coat over Yi Xian. A look of guilt flashed across her eyes. I'm sorry. I've begged Master before, but she... As Nua's disciple, how could the Empyrean fairy not know the pressure Yi Xian was under? She had secretly gone to see Nua, but Nua refused to see her. Clearly, it was impossible for her to agree to the Empyrean fairy's request. The ancient demon court wanted to destroy the celestial court and Yi Xian. This was a matter that was set in stone. How could the Empyrean fairy sit by and do nothing? However, she was too powerless. Nua did not even meet her once. That Saint Nua supports the ancient demon court. This is indeed a great pressure for me. However, saints are not allowed to take action. This is also a rule set by Hung Jun back then. What I'm really worried about is the ancient demon court's heavenly cycle star formation, Yi Xian said in a low voice. Looking at Yi Xian's slightly bleak back, the Empyrean fairy's expression was bitter. Naturally, she knew how terrifying the heavenly cycle star formation was. When this formation was activated, billions of starlight would fall. Even saints would be wary of it. How could the 33 layers of the celestial court resist it? Husband, if you really want to resist this formation, you have to beg Tong Tian. Only the immortal slaying sword formation can be fearless of the heavenly cycle star formation. It can also help the celestial court survive this calamity, the Empyrean fairy said softly. Ha! Yi Xian suddenly turned his head. The corners of his mouth curled into a self-deprecating smile. He slowly shook his head at the Empyrean fairy and said, if this method really works, I would have borrowed the immortal slaying sword formation long ago. However, I have already drawn a clear line with Tong Tian. The immortals of the Jia sect have all left. If I pay him a visit, it will only make me a laughingstock in the three realms. Moreover, even if I shamelessly beg him, Tong Tian may not be willing to be involved in this conflict of the three realms. Yi Xian spoke tirelessly. He understood the situation very clearly. When the immortals of the Jia sect expressed goodwill to the ancient demon court, this also indirectly represented Tong Tian's attitude. But husband, you must know that in this world, only the 12 divine fiends formation and the immortal slaying sword formation can resist the heavenly cycle star formation. Otherwise, no quasi-saint can survive this formation, the Empyrean fairy said with a trembling voice, her face pale. In the past, Nua had taught her. She had once heard Nua mention these three great formations. It could be said that it was extremely difficult to break them. Even the saints had given them such high praise. This also proved how terrifying these three great formations were. Upon hearing the Empyrean fairy's words, Yi Xian frowned. How could he not know how terrifying the heavenly cycle star formation was? However, he really had no other choice now. The celestial court's foundation is too weak. The so-called heavenly protection formation is just a bluff. If the celestial court also had an eternal killing formation comparable to the shamans and demons, how could we have fallen into such a situation? Yi Xian said with a self-deprecating smile. Chapter 737. Don't worry, husband. Formations are created by people. Perhaps we can think of another way. The Empyrean fairy did not know how to comfort Yi Xian. She could only try to reassure him and hope that Yi Xian would not feel too pressured. What did you say? Suddenly, Yi Xian's eyes froze. He abruptly looked at the Empyrean fairy. This also stunned the Empyrean fairy. She did not know what had happened to Yi Xian. I said, perhaps we can think of another way, the Empyrean fairy bit her lip and said. Not this one. The one before that. Yi Xian's eyes were deep and his voice trembled slightly. I said, formations are created by people. What's wrong? Yes, that's the one. That's the one. Formations are also created by humans. Yi Xian's aura fluctuated to the extreme. His eyes shone with a terrifying light. He seemed to have thought of something and entered a state of agitation. Husband, what's wrong with you? The Empyrean fairy panicked when she saw Yi Xian's aura become extremely chaotic. She did not know what had happened to Yi Xian. Unfortunately, Yi Xian did not answer the Empyrean fairy's question. His expression constantly changed. Sometimes it was disappointment, sometimes it was excitement. In the end, it became regret and reluctance. In the past, I once had a close friend. His talent in formations was unparalleled. He could even be said to be unprecedented. He was a peerless genius. If he were still alive, he would definitely be able to create formations comparable to the three great formations of destruction. Yi Xian let out a long sigh. A figure in snow-white clothes appeared in his mind. He seemed to be nodding and smiling at him. There's actually someone like that in the world? What's his name? The Empyrean fairy asked in surprise. Lu, Bai, Yi. Yi Xian paused between each word. His eyes were slightly dazed as he said, a peerless genius. A name that is unknown to the world. Not only was he a close friend of mine, Yi Xian, but he was also the creator of the Immortal defying formation. Buzz. Yi Xian waved his hand in the air and the Immortal defying formation rippled out. It emitted specks of starlight in the void. This made the Empyrean fairy stunned. The Empyrean fairy had always thought that the Immortal defying formation was created by Yi Xian. She didn't know how many great enemies he had fended off. However, only today did she know that the Immortal defying formation was the work of someone else. And this person was the peerless genius Yi Xian spoke of, Lu Bai. It's a pity that when Brother Bai completed the Immortal defying formation, his soul was scattered and he died. If he was still alive, our celestial court's peerless killing formation would shock the three realms. Why would we be afraid of the ancient demon court's heavenly cycle star formation? Yi Xian clenched his fists. There was a touch of bitterness in his eyes. Suddenly, the Empyrean fairy spoke softly. There was a touch of gentleness in her eyes. Husband, do you miss this close friend of yours? Yi Xian laughed self-deprecatingly. The dead cannot be revived unless I can reverse time and heaven and earth. Only then can I gather the fragments of his soul that were scattered in the world. Only then can he be revived. However, if I want to reverse time and heaven and earth, I must become the saint of all beings. Only then can I achieve my goal. Husband, look at what this is. Suddenly, the Empyrean fairy flipped her hand and an ancient bronze mirror appeared. It was emitting turbid light and the surrounding void was slightly distorted. The Kunlun mirror. Yi Xian was puzzled as he looked at the Empyrean fairy's Kunlun mirror. He didn't know why the Empyrean fairy had taken it out. Although the Kunlun mirror can't bring the white-robed brother back to life, the Kunlun mirror has the ability to rewind time and space. It can recreate the scene of the past and let my husband and your close friend reunite. The 9 heavenly maidens smiled. The Kunlun mirror was a natural spiritual treasure. It was extremely famous in the 3 realms. Legend had it that it could travel through time and space. However, this legend was far too exaggerated. Its true use was to reverse time and space, allowing one to know what had happened in the past. The Empyrean fairy could sense Yi Xian's pressure. She also missed Lu Bai. As his wife, there was nothing she could do right now. If the Kunlun mirror could allow Yi Xian to see his old friend alive, it might be able to help Yi Xian recover from his dejection. Reverse time and space. Return to its origin. Yi Xian muttered to himself as he looked at the Kunlun mirror in the Empyrean fairy's hand. His eyes flickered with a complicated light. After a dozen seconds, he finally received the Kunlun mirror. Thank you, Yi Xian said solemnly. You and I were once husband and wife. You don't have to be so courteous with me. The Empyrean fairy smiled faintly. The moon on this day was very round. The two figures snuggled together under the moonlight. It was as if an eternal picture had been frozen in time. Perhaps it would forever be engraved in Yi Xian's memory. The celestial court was operating as per normal. Although there were quasi-saints visiting the celestial court from time to time to inquire about the primordial violet qi, they were intimidated by the celestial court and could only return helplessly. 3 quasi-saints presided over the celestial court. Demon Master Kun Peng, Mahamayuri, and the dreaded Taishang Lao Jun. Just these 3 alone were enough to intimidate all quasi-saints. They did not dare to act rashly in the celestial court. Yi Xian was in seclusion. No one knew when he would come out of seclusion. However, the attention of the 3 realms was now all on the ancient demon court. They did not pay much attention to Yi Xian. After all, a celestial court that was about to be destroyed would not attract anyone's attention at all. In the bullfighting palace, the retrograde passage was opening. The door to the human realm appeared. Yi Xian stood with his hands behind his back. Fatso Huang accompanied him. Obviously, Yi Xian wanted to go to the human realm. The human realm was his route. Lu Bai was also buried in the human realm. "Sir, we should set off." Fatso Huang reminded him in a low voice. "How many years has it been?" "I can't remember clearly. It should be tens of thousands of years." Yi Xian muttered to himself. It had been tens of thousands of years since he last returned to the human realm. The people and things of the past should have long disappeared in the human realm. He did not know what the human realm had become after tens of thousands of years. "Let's go." Yi Xian strolled in. Fatso Huang quickly followed. As the door of the retrograde passage closed, the 2 of them finally disappeared from the bullfighting palace. 100,000 years, 100,000 years. After 100,000 years, Yi Xian returned to his homeland again. However, he had already become a sage-to-be. He was no longer the youth of the past. However, in the human realm after 100,000 years, were there any people or things that he was familiar with? The human realm. The sky was boundless and the ground was vast. Towering mountains rose from the ground. The 3 heavens' ancient trees covered the mountains. Although the spiritual qi drifting between heaven and earth was not as dense as in the earth immortal realm, it gave people a sense of tranquility and peace. Buzz! The void rippled, and an illusory door flickered in the sky. As the 2 figures walked out of the door, the boundless sky suddenly flashed with lightning. There was also a terrifying sound of thunder exploding, and even the heaven and earth trembled slightly. Freeze! Heaven and earth stagnated with a finger. The flashing lightning in the sky had already dissipated. Obviously, when Yi Xian appeared in the human realm, he, as a sage-to-be, naturally posed a great threat to this part of the world. However, under his Dharma and Tao, this part of the world was instantly suppressed. Above the sky, between heaven and earth, Yi Xian's Dharma eyes shone through the entire human realm. A large number of scenes also appeared in Yi Xian's eyes. Chapter 738. Is this really a reincarnation? After leaving his homeland for 100,000 years, when Yi Xian stepped into the mortal world again, even though he saw the scene of the mortal world, he was already muddle-headed. According to Yi Xian's guess, after 100,000 years, the mortal world might have already entered an era where technology and cultivation coexisted. It would show a bright and prosperous era, and he would never see the people and things he was once familiar with. But what did he see? There was no brilliant technology, nor were there any cultivators. The whole mortal world was still the same as it was before he ascended. If there was any difference, it would be that the terrain of the mortal world was not the same as it was 100,000 years ago. The area of the mortal world had increased by 10 times. People's clothes were more old-fashioned, but the tall buildings were rising. The familiar sound of car horns came to Yi Xian's ears. There were also beautiful young people walking in the bustling metropolis. Nothing had changed, but it seemed that everything had changed. In Yi Xian's perception, the spiritual qi of this world was abundant, but he could not sense the existence of any cultivators. His Dharma eyes were like the sky, shining all over the mortal world. Yi Xian's eyes trembled slightly. When he returned to the mortal world again, there was no cultivator in the mortal world. However, this was not the most surprising thing to him. What shocked Yi Xian the most was that everything in the mortal world had returned to its original point. Even Jiangnan City, which had been annihilated in history, was intact as before. Why is it like this? Yi Xian murmured to himself. His eyes were extremely confused. He could not understand why after 100,000 years, the mortal world was still the same as before. Even though he had returned to the mortal world twice before, the mortal world had changed rapidly. Whether it was technology or cultivation, they were all at their peak. But today, after 100,000 years, the mortal world had returned to its original point again. Life and death alternate, and all things reincarnate. Even history is extremely similar. Even though Yi Xian was now a sage-to-be, he really could not understand why the mortal world was exactly the same as when he left. This was also a big question in his mind. It wasn't just Yi Xian. Fatso Huang was also in a daze. He was currently looking around the human world and had fallen into an indescribable state. Go! Yi Xian said solemnly. He strode forward with great questions in his heart. This also caused Fatso Huang to quickly come to his senses. He quickly caught up with Yi Xian, and the two of them disappeared into the boundless sky. Jiangnan City. July was fiery, and summer was scorching. However, the sky had just begun to brighten, and the morning air was filled with coolness. The rising sun had just risen from the east, which also meant that a new day had begun. The streets were clean and tidy, with pedestrians in twos and threes. There were peddlers selling breakfast on both sides of the street from time to time. There were also students and office workers quickly eating the food in their hands and then hurrying away from the stalls. Two figures walked over from the end of the street. However, the two of them were wearing ancient clothes, which made them look extremely different. However, the two of them had an indescribable temperament, which attracted the gazes of the people who were eating on both sides of the street. Yi Xian strolled on the familiar street as if he was taking a leisurely stroll. His eyes were unusually deep. Although there was no aura around him, he gave people a sense of tranquility and peace. Ethereal like smoke, surrounded by clouds and mist, Yi Xian had an indescribable temperament, which was very attractive. Some young women who were at work even cast sidelong glances at Yi Xian. Even some young girls who had just fallen in love frequently stole glances at Yi Xian. Although Yi Xian did not show his aura, he had cultivated for 100,000 years and entered the sage-to-be realm. His life level was much higher than that of ordinary people. Naturally, he had an indescribable attraction to ordinary people, which was most directly reflected by these girls. Little brother. Can I add you as a friend on QQ? A youthful girl, who was at the most beautiful age, hesitated for a moment, but still bit her lips and walked quickly to Yi Xian. She took out a phone and looked at Yi Xian expectantly. Yi Xian's thoughts turned. He looked at the girl in front of him with a slightly blank expression. Only then did he understand what she meant. This made Yi Xian slightly startled, and he did not know how to respond. It was no wonder that Yi Xian was like this. After 100,000 years of fighting and killing, he had long forgotten the trivial matters of the boundless secular world. How could he have experienced such a thing? Go away. Suddenly, Fatso Huang strode over and stared fiercely at the girl. Originally, Fatso Huang did not look like a good person. At this moment, when he put on a ferocious look, the girl was immediately frightened and retreated. You! What are you doing? The girl's small face was pale. She was obviously frightened by Fatso Huang. However, they were in broad daylight, and in a society ruled by law, the girl did not believe that Fatso Huang would dare to do anything to her. Stupid girl, do you believe it or not, Fatso Huang was not someone who would go easy on girls. He also knew that Yi Xian had just returned to the human world. How could he be interested in these little girls? They still had serious business to attend to. How could they waste time because of a little girl they did not know? Just as Fatso Huang was about to push the girl away, Yi Xian's voice sounded. Back down. Eh. Fatso Huang was startled, then smiled flatteringly and retreated behind Yi Xian. Little girl, how old are you to ask for a stranger's contact number? You should focus on your studies. In the future, don't do such rude things. Yi Xian said softly. I'm not a little girl. I'm already 18 this year. I'm an adult. Old uncle, if you don't want to give it to me, then don't give it to me. I don't want it. After the initial shyness, the girl had returned to her original youthful personality. Then, she quickly walked away. Children these days. Yi Xian was slightly stunned, then smiled helplessly. However, the appearance of this girl seemed to have rejuvenated his young heart. Stupid uncle, old uncle, you're clearly not old yourself, but you call me a little girl. The girl angrily kicked the stones on the side of the road. She was extremely disappointed that she did not get Yi Xian's contact number. After all, this was the first time she took the initiative to ask for a boy's contact number. However, she was rejected by him. This made her extremely embarrassed and angry. But this stupid uncle is so handsome. The girl bit her lips slightly as a trace of shyness flashed across her face. She secretly looked at Yi Xian again, but happened to meet Yi Xian's gaze. This frightened her so much that she hurriedly turned her head, her heart thumping wildly. Sir, this little girl has taken a liking to you. Why don't you take her in? Fatso Huang smiled flatteringly. It was rare for him to joke with Yi Xian. Clearly, Fatso Huang was in a good mood after returning to the human world. You rascal, you're becoming more and more impudent. Even you're teasing me now. It seems that if I don't supervise your cultivation properly, your true nature will be exposed again. Yi Xian scolded jokingly. Chapter 739. Oh, please don't torture me. It took me tens of thousands of years to reach the level of Daluo Jingxian. Please let me enjoy it for a few days, Fatso Huang said with a flattering smile. Hearing Fatso Huang's flattering words, Yi Xian sighed and said, yes, it's been 100,000 years. Perhaps the human world is our root. Only in the human world can we relax. Their voices were not loud, but it fell into the ears of the peddlers and diners on both sides of the street, which made these people look at them with strange expressions. They can't be lunatics, can they? They don't look like it. Although they are wearing ancient clothes, maybe they are shooting a movie. There are so many lunatics these days. Didn't you hear what they were talking about? Daluo Jingxian, and 100,000 years. Do they really think they are shooting a Xianxia TV series? The diners and peddlers on both sides of the street were whispering. Obviously, they regarded the two as lunatics. However, they would never know that the two people in front of them were existences that they could not imagine. Let's go. The discussion of the crowd naturally could not escape Yi Xian's ears, but he would not lower himself to the level of mortals. Because he came to Jiangnan City only to see why the history of the human world had returned to the original point. Yi Xian strolled forward, and Fatso Huang followed behind. The two gradually disappeared into the street against the morning sun. However, the morning sun cast long and narrow shadows on the two, as if it was witnessing their arrival. Time could erase everything and take away anything. However, the only thing that didn't change was the memories hidden deep within one's mind. In Yi Xian's memory, Jiangnan City was his home, and it was also his hometown where he was born and raised. There were his laughter and his joys and sorrows here. He had once brought his little sister to play on the streets, and he had once laughed and played with his little brother in the wheat fields. He had also once experienced his first love here, and had even spent a period of his youthful and ignorant youth here. Everything had changed. Maybe it was just a moment of prosperity. 100,000 years would eventually obliterate the people and things of the past. His relatives and friends were gone. Even though history had returned to the original point and Jiangnan City had not changed, he would never see the people of the past again. Strolling through the boundless secular world and experiencing the joys and sorrows of mortals, Yi Xian's thoughts drifted. If the history of the mortal world really returned to its original point, then would the people of the past reappear? Home. It was a simple word, but to Yi Xian, it had been far, far too long since he had heard it. He had also not thought about it for a very, very long time, because this word was far, far away from him. It was so far away that he would never be able to remember it until he returned to the human world. In the shanty town of Jiangnan City. This was still a gathering place for the poor, and it was also Yi Xian's home in the past. Along the bumpy road, Yi Xian walked according to the memory in his mind. Fatso Huang strolled behind him with a rare solemnity on his face, because he knew that this was Yi Xian's former hometown and the place where he lived. The arrival of the two people in ancient clothes naturally surprised the people who were just about to go to work in the morning. However, everyone was busy with their lives. Although they were a little curious about the two people, they did not care and were busy with their own things. A mottled iron gate was engraved with the traces of time. The walls on both sides were mottled and had many cracks, proving that this house had been around for some time. It was exactly the same. Even the old pagoda tree in front of the door was exactly the same as it was 100,000 years ago. Yi Xian stopped under the tree and stared at everything in front of him in a daze. He could not come back to his senses for a long time because he could not believe that the mortal world after 100,000 years would restore his former home. Was there really such a thing as the reincarnation of all things? Mom, I'm hungry. Suddenly, a voice as pleasant as an oriole's came from behind the iron gate. This caused Yi Xian's thoughts to turn. However, his body trembled slightly, proving that his heart was in turmoil. This voice. Yi Xian muttered with a trembling voice. He walked step by step towards his former home. When he pressed his hand on the mottled iron gate, he did not push it open. If history returned to its original point, then was the voice that came from his home the most important person to him in the past? Yi Xian pressed his hand on the iron gate. He really did not dare to push it open because he was afraid that the person he saw would not be the person he wanted to see. The greater the hope, the greater the disappointment. In the past 100,000 years, there was nothing in the world that Yi Xian didn't dare to do. However, right now, he didn't dare to push open the iron door in front of him. Sir, go in and take a look. Perhaps sensing Yi Xian's struggle and hesitation, Fatso Huang softly advised him. Creak. The thin iron gate was finally pushed open by Yi Xian. Yi Xian's face was slightly pale as he looked at the scene behind the iron gate. He saw a young girl sitting in the courtyard, looking at Yi Xian in shock and panic. Boom! As if struck by lightning, as if his soul had exploded, Yi Xian felt all the pores on his body stand on end. Even the indestructible true spirit in his sea of consciousness was extremely stagnant. Suddenly, Yi Xian took a step forward and a trembling voice came from his mouth. He abruptly appeared in front of the young girl and pulled her into his embrace. Big brother, I missed you so much. Yi Xian hugged the young girl tightly. His eyes were somewhat moist, and he fell into an indescribable state. Ah! Suddenly, the young girl let out an ear-piercing scream. Her thin and weak body kept struggling in Yi Xian's arms as she let out a terrified cry. Let go of me. Big brother, save me. Thump, thump, thump. A flurry of footsteps sounded, and a young man walked out from the inner room. His face was covered in flour, and he held a rolling pin in his hand. When he saw a stranger in his home and pulled his little sister into his arms, the young man roared angrily and swung the rolling pin at Yi Xian. "Bastard, let go of my little sister." As the young man spoke, the rolling pin in his hand kept swinging at Yi Xian, hitting Yi Xian's body. This caused Fatso Huang's expression to change drastically. A speck of immortal light appeared at his fingertips, as if he was about to attack in the next moment. Unfortunately, before Fatso Huang could make a move, Yi Xian finally came to his senses, perhaps because of the young man's attacks. This caused the young girl to escape from his arms and hide behind the young man in panic. "Who are you? Why have you appeared in my home?" The young man shielded his little sister behind him and roared angrily at Yi Xian with the rolling pin in his hand. At this moment, Yi Xian looked at the siblings in confusion. His gaze gradually became clear, and a trace of bitterness flashed past his eyes. They were too similar, simply too similar. The siblings in front of him were 60% similar to Yi Ling, and Yi Ping in the past. However, Yi Xian was too agitated just now and mistook the young girl for Yi Ling, Now that he had come to his senses, he realized that the other party was not Yi Ling, Chapter 740. What are your names? Yi Xian asked softly. My name is Chu Tian. She is my sister, Chu Yu. What do you want? Young Chu Tian said fiercely. He even waved his rolling pin as if he was trying to intimidate Yi Xian. Chu Tian. Chu Yu. Yi Xian muttered to himself. Then, he laughed at himself. So they really weren't his family. Everything was in the past. His so-called family didn't have anyone from the past. What's wrong? What happened? An anxious voice sounded from within the house. A middle-aged woman quickly walked out. When Yi Xian looked at the middle-aged woman, he was completely stupefied on the spot. How? How is this possible? How can they be so alike? At this moment, Fatso Huang screamed in horror. Although 100,000 years had passed, Fatso Huang had interacted with Yi Xian's family many times. At this moment, this middle-aged woman's appearance was 80% similar to Yi Xian's mother. This was simply inconceivable to Fatso Huang. Mom, this person barged into our house and bullied little sister. Hurry up and report this to the police, Chu Tian said anxiously. He was afraid that these two people would harm his family. What? Chu Tian's mother's expression changed drastically. She quickly looked at Yi Xian and Chu Tian. However, when she saw Yi Xian's bitter eyes, she was stunned. She didn't take out her phone to report this. She didn't know why, but when Chu Tian's mother saw Yi Xian, she suddenly felt very close to him. This feeling came out of nowhere, but it was the truest feeling Chu Tian's mother had. Young man. Are you really a bad person? Chu Tian's mother's lips trembled slightly. Unfortunately, Yi Xian didn't seem to hear Chu Tian's mother's question. He stared blankly at Chu Tian's mother. A trace of sadness flashed across his eyes. They're too alike. They're simply too alike. Could it be that after 100,000 years, it's not just heaven and earth that's reincarnated? Even all living things will be reincarnated. Yi Xian muttered to himself. There are always two similar flowers in the world, one withering and the other blooming. Is this really the case? Yi Xian kept mumbling to himself as he fell into a state of confusion. Mom, this person must be crazy. Hurry up and report this to the police. Chu Tian said anxiously. It was not against the law for a lunatic to hurt people. He would only be sent to a mental hospital. He did not want his family to face someone who was suspected of having mental problems. Second brother, I don't think he's crazy. Chu Yu weakly said from behind him. After experiencing the initial panic and fear, she'd calmed down and looked at Yi Xian with curiosity. If he's not crazy, then what is he? He was just bullying you. Chu Tian reprimanded in a low voice. Young man, what's wrong with you? Mrs. Chu said softly. She believed in her intuition that this strange young man before her was definitely not a bad person. Perhaps it was because of Mrs. Chu's words that Yi Xian woke up from his stupor. He tried his best to calm down and his face finally returned to normal. This used to be my home. It's just that I haven't been back for many years, so I was a little agitated. Please don't take offense, Yi Xian said softly. Liar, this shantytown was only built a little more than 10 years ago. It has always been where we lived. Before this, it was just a piece of wilderness. How could it be your home? Chu Tian said coldly, treating Yi Xian as a liar. Young man, where's your family? Do you have any way to contact them? Auntie can help you contact them, Mrs. Chu said softly. Although she did not think that Yi Xian was a bad person, it seemed that he had some mental problems. He must have been separated from his family and appeared here. Family? Yi Xian asked himself blankly. Then, he laughed self-deprecatingly and muttered, I walk the path alone. I have no family. My family is long gone. Lunatic. Chu Tian's expression changed slightly when he heard Yi Xian's crazy words. Clang. Suddenly, the sound of a door being broken came from outside the door. The half-closed iron door was kicked open, and a dozen burly men broke in. Behind them was an enchanting and sexy woman who slowly walked into the Chu family. You bunch of poor bastards, you still haven't moved out? A burly man with a fiendish expression was holding a stick in his hand as he shouted arrogantly. He looked at Mrs. Chu fiercely with a sinister smile on his face. You. Don't mess around. Otherwise, I'll report you. Chu Tian's expression changed drastically when he saw these people suddenly appear. He held the rolling pin in his hand and hurriedly protected his younger sister and mother. His face was flushed red as he shouted angrily at these people. He he he. A sweet and charming laughter came. The seductive woman was about 20 years old. She was laughing coquettishly as she walked toward Mrs. Chu. Little brother, it's not good to have such a bad temper. I gave your family a chance, but you forced me to be rough. You can't blame me for this. The enchanting woman had a curvaceous figure and could be called a beauty. At this moment, she arrived in front of Chu Tian. With a simple pull, she snatched the rolling pin from Chu Tian's hand. Chu Tian staggered and fell to the ground. Obviously, this woman was also a martial artist. How could Chu Tian be a match for her? Miss Lin, your Lin family is a big family. We're just poor people. Why do you have to be so aggressive? Mrs. Chu said with a bitter smile. Auntie, you can't say that. I, Lin Qianqian, may not be a good person, but I'm definitely not a bad person. Half a year ago, I informed you that this shanty town would be transformed into the largest entertainment city in Jiangnan City. I also gave you a large sum of money for the relocation, but you refused and insisted on staying here. Look at your neighbors, haven't they already accepted it and are moving out one by one? Lin Qianqian laughed coquettishly, but her beautiful eyes gradually became sharp. Miss Lin, you know that the money you gave us is indeed a lot, but the housing prices in Jiangnan City are too expensive. If we really move out, we won't be able to buy a house with that money. Won't we lose our home? Mrs. Chu said bitterly. That's none of my business. The approval has already been given. In 7 days, this shantytown will be demolished. Today, I'm only here to inform you. If you still refuse to leave, then don't blame me, Lin Qianqian, for being impolite. Lin Qianqian's smile disappeared and her voice turned cold. We won't move. You don't have to say anything. Mrs. Chu looked weak, but her heart was strong. Otherwise, how could she raise 3 children? If she lost her home because of Lin Qianqian's threat, she would never forgive herself. Humph, you're not taking the face I gave you. Lin Qianqian reprimanded. She was the eldest daughter of the Lin family. Everyone had to be respectful to her. Now that Mrs. Chu dared to refuse her, it made her angry. Old thing, I think you're tired of living. A burly man smiled sinisterly and strode toward Chu Li's mother. It seemed like he was determined to teach her a lesson. The siblings cried out in alarm and hurriedly tried to stop him. Chapter 741. Bang Bang. The burly man was burly and proficient in martial arts. The brother and sister were only teenagers, so they were kicked to the ground by the burly man, causing them to cry out in pain. What are you doing? Seeing her children injured, Mrs. Chu asked in a trembling voice. However, the burly man was still grinning and had already arrived in front of Mrs. Chu. What are we doing? If I don't teach your family a lesson, you won't know who's in charge of Jiangnan City. The burly man grinned and swung his fist at Mrs. Chu. Kill him. Suddenly, a calm voice quietly sounded in the courtyard of the Chu family. It was also at this moment that something extremely terrifying happened. Pfft! A hand pierced through the burly man's chest, causing blood to spurt out onto the ground. As Fatso Huang pulled his hand out indifferently, a sinister smile appeared on his face, and he threw the burly man to the ground as if he was throwing trash. Pfft! Blood continued to spurt out of the man's mouth, mixed with pieces of his internal organs. His entire body twitched on the ground like a dead dog. Clearly, his heart had been pierced through by Fatso Huang and he was done for. It's been a long time since I killed someone with my own hands. I really miss it. Fatso Huang's face was intoxicated. He took a deep breath of the smell of blood floating in the air. The sinister and cruel expression on his face was simply terrifying. Ah! He killed someone. Chu Yu screamed. After all, she was only a young girl and had never seen such a terrifying thing. Not only Chu Yu, but Chu Tian and Mrs. Chu were also pale at this moment. They retreated in extreme fear. The mother and son of the Chu family did not expect that these 2 people who suddenly appeared would kill someone without any hesitation. This was simply unimaginable. Killing someone in such a bloody way. You should change this habit of yours. Yi Xian frowned slightly. It only took a thought to kill Immortal, but Fatso Huang insisted on doing it himself and causing such a bloody scene. This made Yi Xian extremely speechless. Hee. Fatso Huang gave a flattering smile and hurriedly bowed to Yi Xian. Sir, I haven't exercised for a long time. I won't dare to do it again next time. You. Sigh. Yi Xian smiled helplessly and did not say anything. After all, Fatso Huang was his most trusted subordinate. He could not blame him for such a small matter. You, who are you? At this time, Lin Qianqian finally recovered from her fear. When she saw her subordinates dying in the hands of Fatso Huang, she fell into a state of panic and only woke up now. It wasn't that Lin Qianqian hadn't killed anyone before, and it wasn't that she hadn't seen dead people before, but such a gory way of killing made her hair stand on end. Terrifying, too terrifying. His palm pierced through her chest, and he killed her so casually, as if he was stepping on an ant. This made Lin Qianqian extremely terrified. Get lost. Fatso Huang's cold voice was like a thunderbolt exploding in Lin Qianqian's ears. This also made her take 3 steps back and look at Yi Xian and Fatso Huang in horror. You're ancient warriors. Lin Qianqian screamed in horror as if she had discovered something extremely terrifying. Ancient warriors? Fatso Huang smiled contemptuously. The so-called ancient warriors were not even ants in front of Yi Xian. Fatso Huang did not bother to explain to Lin Qianqian. What are you waiting for? Kill them. Yi Xian frowned slightly. He was extremely impatient with these flies. He did not have time to waste with an ant like Lin Qianqian. Yes, sir. Fatso Huang smiled ferociously. A spot of immortal light appeared on his fingertip, as if he was going to kill Lin Qianqian and the others in the next moment. No. Suddenly, before Fatso Huang could do anything, Chu Machen's mother rushed to Yi Xian and pleaded in a panic, "No. Don't kill them. I beg you." Yi Xian was slightly stunned by Chu Machen's mother's request. He suddenly realized that this was not the Earth immortal world, but the human world. Chu Machen's mother and the others were just mortals. They had never seen a bloody massacre. Perhaps Yi Xian had been away from the human world for too long, but he was too familiar with killing. Driven by instinct, he naturally did not take it seriously. However, in the eyes of Chu Machen's mother and son, it was too terrifying. "Let them go," Yi Xian said softly, which disappointed Fatso Huang. The spot of immortal light disappeared quietly. Chu Machen heaved a sigh of relief. If Lin Qianqian and the others really died here, it would definitely be a disaster. You just wait. I will definitely not let you go." Mortals were mortals after all. They could not imagine Yi Xian's level. Chu Machen did not know that she had just walked through the gates of hell. At this moment, she left with her subordinates and hurriedly left the Chu residence. How troublesome. Looking at Lin Qianqian's back as she left, Yi Xian understood the principle of cutting weeds without removing the roots. When the spring breeze came, it would grow again. He secretly gave Fatso Huang a look, which made Fatso Huang smile ferociously. He naturally knew what Yi Xian meant. "Sir, I'm going to see an old friend. I'll find you later." Fatso Huang bowed and slowly walked out of the Chu residence. Yi Xian naturally knew what Fatso Huang was going to do. This was what he had instructed Fatso Huang to do. "This. Big brother. Are you an ancient warrior?" Chu Yu asked cautiously. The burly man's corpse was still lying in the courtyard, which proved that what had just happened was not fake. "Young man, you should leave quickly. You killed the Lin family's people. They will not let you go." Chu Machen's mother was the elder after all. She knew that things were going to get serious. She hurriedly advised Yi Xian. Unfortunately, Yi Xian slowly shook his head. He did not leave. With a light flick of his sleeve, the bloody corpse on the ground turned into ashes. Even the bloodstains on the ground disappeared. Such a miracle simply stunned the mother and son of the Chu family. The brother and sister looked at Yi Xian with shining eyes, as if they were looking at an immortal. You are an immortal?" Chu Tian asked in a trembling voice. "An immortal?" Yi Xian whispered to himself. A trace of helplessness flashed across his eyes. He was not an immortal, but a real sage to be. How could an immortal compare to him? However, Yi Xian naturally would not explain to the mother and son of the Chu family. There was simply no need to. "Perhaps," Yi Xian said ambiguously. Bang! Suddenly, Chu Tian knelt on the ground in excitement. He kept kowtowing to Yi Xian. His voice trembled as he said, "Immortal. Immortal above. Please accept me as your disciple." Yi Xian was slightly stunned by this scene. He then smiled helplessly. When he gently flicked his sleeve, a breeze blew past, causing Chu Tian to stand up from his kneeling position. "I have never accepted disciples. There is no need to mention this again. However, I would like to stay at home for a few days. As a reward, I will naturally teach you some body refining techniques." Yi Xian looked at Chu Tian's mother. Clearly, he was asking for her opinion. "Ah, okay. Young man, you can stay here. It just so happens that my eldest son is boarding at the school. His room is still empty. Chu Tian's mother hurriedly replied. Chapter 742. The moon hung high in the night sky, and the world was silent. Yi Xian looked at the moonlight through the window. He was extremely calm, as if he was calmly sensing something. His entire body exuded an ethereal aura that made it difficult for others to grasp. Today, Yi Xian had decided to stay in the Chu clan on a whim. He was very curious about one thing. If the cycle of the heavens and the earth was a cycle of reincarnation, would someone similar to him still exist in this world? The mother and son of the Chu clan were vaguely similar to his family in the past. Not only in appearance, but also in character, they gave Yi Xian an extremely amiable feeling. However, although the mother and son of the Chu clan were similar to his family, they were also very different. Chu clan's mother had lost her husband at a young age, and raised her 3 children alone. She did not experience the events of the Yi clan like he did in the past. Moreover, Yi Xian was very curious. If Chu clan's eldest son was boarding at the school, would that person be exactly like him in his youth? Filled with curiosity, Yi Xian decided to stay. He was prepared to personally meet Chu clan's eldest son. Perhaps Yi Xian also had a faint trace of anticipation in his heart. If the cycle of the heavens and the earth is a cycle of reincarnation, would another Lu Bai appear in this world? Yi Xian murmured to himself, a hint of hope in his eyes. Sir, Fatso Huang quietly appeared behind Yi Xian and bowed to Yi Xian. Is it all done? Yi Xian stood with his hands behind his back and asked. Sir, don't worry. This subordinate did not leave any traces behind. That so-called Lin clan was completely annihilated, and that Lin Qianqian was personally killed by this subordinate. Fatso Huang seemed to be speaking casually. It was obvious that he was very familiar with this kind of small matter. After all, he had done this kind of shady business many times in the past. Yi Xian slowly nodded, then turned to look at Fatso Huang and said, the mother and son of the Chu clan are mortals after all. Only by completely annihilating them can they avoid the Lin clan's revenge. You did well. He. Thank you for the compliment, sir. This is what your subordinate should do. However, your subordinate has a great doubt in his heart. Why did this mother and son of the Chu family and your former family members? Fatso Huang wanted to say something but stopped. He didn't continue. It was obvious that he was extremely surprised by this strange occurrence. Yi Xian said in a low voice, I'm also very curious. Logically speaking, after 100,000 years, the human realm should have developed to the pinnacle of both technology and cultivation. But why did it return to the starting point after 100,000 years? I have something to say, but I don't know if I should say it. Fatso Huang said softly. You and I are like brothers. There's no harm in speaking your mind, Yi Xian said softly. 100,000 years have passed. Although the human realm is still the human realm, Sir and I have changed. This human realm is only a part of Sir's journey. I hope that Sir can understand that we are only passers-by in this human realm. Fatso Huang said in a rare serious tone. Ha! Looking at Fatso Huang's serious expression, Yi Xian laughed out loud. He naturally saw through Fatso Huang's worries. Clearly, he was afraid that Fatso Huang would have the heart to stay in the human realm after seeing the mother and son of the Chu family. You usually look cheerful and jovial, but when it comes to serious matters, your face turns solemn. Yi Xian smiled and teased, when I return to the human realm this time, I only have one thing in my heart. However, the human realm is our old home after all. Revisiting this old home can be considered as relaxing. Why would I really stay here? Your subordinate worries too much. Fatso Huang smiled flatteringly. He knew that he was thinking too much. Sky Blue Academy. There was an endless stream of cars and pedestrians in twos and threes. From time to time, various luxurious cars could be seen parked in front of Sky Blue Academy. There was also a large number of students coming in and out. Yi Xian stood in front of Sky Blue Academy. His eyes were somewhat absent-minded. His thoughts were drifting, and memories hidden in the depths of his mind were surging forth. Looking at things, thinking of people, or revisiting old home. Nothing seemed to have changed, but everything seemed to have changed. Yi Xian felt as if he was dreaming, and his heart also let out a long sigh. Yi Xian no longer hesitated. He slowly walked into Sky Blue Academy. This was because he didn't only come here to revisit old home, but also to do two things. A gentle breeze blew, and the willow trees swayed. Yi Xian walked in Sky Blue Academy. He felt the unique atmosphere of youth in the academy, and a sentimental smile gradually appeared on his face. In the depths of the academy, there was a 100-year-old locust tree rooted in the soil. Its umbrella-shaped tree shade blocked the scorching sun. When Yi Xian came under the tree, he touched the 100-year-old tree with both hands. His thoughts drifted again. Yi Xian vaguely remembered that when he was young, the thing he was most willing to do was to read under this old locust tree with Xia Qingzhu by his side. Unfortunately, things remained the same, but people had changed. The tree was no longer the tree of the past, and the people were no longer the people of the past. Everything could no longer go back. Even his childhood sweetheart had been strangled by his own hands. Yi Xian felt sentimental for a moment, then quietly left under the tree without any reluctance. Sky Blue Library. This was not only the library of Sky Blue Academy, but also the largest library in Jiangnan City. It contained all kinds of books, which was also one of the purposes of Yi Xian's visit. The library was very quiet, so quiet that there was no sound. Students were quietly reading in twos and threes. Even when Yi Xian entered the library, he didn't attract anyone's attention. Ancient and Modern History. Yi Xian shuttled through the library and finally found the book he was looking for. Then, he held the book in his hand and silently read it. If one wanted to understand the development of the world, books were undoubtedly the most direct way. Yi Xian also wanted to know why everything had returned to the starting point after 100,000 years. The book was very heavy. If an ordinary person read it, they might not be able to finish it in a month. But for Yi Xian, it only took a few minutes. The Great War of Destruction. When Yi Xian closed the Ancient and Modern History book, his eyes revealed a look of astonishment. He muttered to himself as he already knew about the current history. According to the records of ancient and modern history, this world originally had immortal cultivators, and technology had developed to an extremely terrifying level. But when human civilization reached the extreme, they faced extinction. The war between immortal cultivators and human technology broke out. When immortal cultivators had the power to destroy the world, when ordinary people were unwilling to be enslaved by immortal cultivators, the conflict between the two almost destroyed the entire human world. It had to be said that when technology developed to the extreme, even immortal cultivators would suffer a disaster. This war completely wiped out immortal cultivators, and countless immortal cultivation secret books were burned. From then on, immortal cultivators no longer existed in this world, and immortal cultivators were also listed as a taboo by human beings. After the destruction, there was recovery. Although immortal cultivators were wiped out, human beings also suffered a disaster. Whether it was technology or culture, they all regressed to the extreme. This was also the reason why the human world returned to the starting point after 100,000 years. Chapter 743. However, there was one thing that Yi Xian didn't understand. Since history had regressed due to the War of Destruction, why was the human world so similar to 100,000 years ago? Yi Xian didn't want to think about it since he was only a passerby in the human world. He would leave soon. Why are you here? Suddenly, a clear female voice sounded in front of Yi Xian. This caused Yi Xian to return to his senses and look towards the person. When he saw the young girl in front of him, the corners of his mouth curved up into a smile. What a coincidence! Yi Xian nodded with a smile. The person in front of him was the girl who asked for his contact. She was clearly a student of Sky Blue Academy and coincidentally met him here. Hello, I'm Li Ruodong. Nice to meet you. What's your name? The girl didn't expect to meet Yi Xian again. This made her laugh out loud. Yi Xian. Yi Xian said softly. Hearing Yi Xian's name, the young girl giggled and sat beside Yi Xian as if she was familiar with him. The two of them could be considered to have officially met and started chatting. You are looking for Xian. Are you his older brother? As the two of them chatted, the young girl cried out in surprise. Only then did she realize that Yi Xian, who was sitting in front of her, actually looked extremely similar to their school hunk. TSK TSK TSK. They really look alike. The girl sized up Yi Xian and clicked her tongue in wonder. Where is he now? Yi Xian asked with a smile. Our school hunk Chu is obviously with school beauty Qing Xian. The girl giggled. Let's go. I'll bring you to him. As the young girl spoke, she pulled Yi Xian out of the library. This allowed Yi Xian to slowly follow her, but his eyes were abnormally deep. He could tell from the young girl's surprised tone that this Chu Xian should look somewhat similar to him. Sky Blue Academy, basketball court. A large number of cheers could be heard as the basketball court was surrounded by layers upon layers of people. When the young girl pulled Yi Xian and pushed through the crowd, they finally squeezed into the basketball court. Come on, there's only 1 minute left before the match ends. We'll get 2 more points. On the basketball court, there was an extraordinarily handsome young man. At this moment, he was dripping with sweat as he played the basketball. There was a vigorous aura around him as he cheered on his teammates. Okay, let's beat them up and get another 2 points. The young man's teammates echoed loudly. Go Xian. The cheerleaders outside the field were all young girls. At this moment, they were waving the garlands in their hands and cheering for the young man on the field. There was even an extremely pure and beautiful girl who was intertwining her fingers and looking at the young man who was sweating profusely on the field with admiration. Bang! Xian's figure was strong and vigorous. He passed 3 people on the court in succession, jumped vigorously under the sun, and directly dunked the basketball in his hand into the basket. The referee's whistle sounded, and the game finally ended. We won. Ha! On the field, Xian was lifted up high by his teammates, and then thrown into the air. The cheerleaders outside the field and the pure girl jogged into the basketball court, cheering for their victory together. Did you see that? Your little brother is a famous person in our school. Li Ruodong's eyes were filled with little stars, looking at Xian on the basketball court with admiration. At this moment, Yi Xian looked at the young man on the field with deep eyes, and then lightly nodded. No one knew what he was thinking in his heart. Xian, your brother is here to see you. Li Ruodong shouted outside the field. This made Xian, who was drinking mineral water, slightly startled. He then looked towards the source of the voice. Here, here. Li Ruodong continuously waved her hands at Xian, which also made the young man see Yi Xian's existence. However, when Xian saw Yi Xian's appearance, his entire person was as if struck by lightning, fixed on the spot. Xian, when did you have a brother? How come I didn't know? Zhao Qingxian asked with a face full of surprise. She also looked towards Yi Xian, but when she saw Yi Xian, she was also slightly startled. This was because Yi Xian and her boyfriend actually looked 30 to 40% similar. At this moment, Yi Xian silently glanced at the young couple, then turned around and walked towards the field. This also made Xian instantly come back to his senses, a trace of bewilderment in his eyes. He quickly walked towards Yi Xian. Sky Blue Academy Field. Who are you? When the young man arrived behind Yi Xian, he directly voiced the doubts in his heart. This was because the person in front of him actually looked 30 to 40% similar to him, and actually made his soul tremble. This kind of strange feeling made him extremely uncomfortable. Unfortunately, Yi Xian didn't answer the young man's question. He only silently looked at Xian, and didn't answer the young man's question for a long time. Similar in appearance but not in spirit. You're not me in the end. Yi Xian slowly shook his head, his voice was slightly hoarse. He originally thought that this young man might be a portrayal of him in the past. However, other than the young man's appearance being somewhat similar to him, no matter if it was his personality or gaze, he didn't have the style of his youth. Who exactly are you? I don't understand what you're saying. Xian frowned, feeling bewildered by this strange person before him. I just want to see if a person like me will appear in the human world if history returns to its original point. Unfortunately, you're not me. Yi Xian shook his head in disappointment. This was because he could see from the young man's eyes that he was brimming with youth, righteousness, and was a good young man. Moreover, he didn't have any shrewdness in his heart, not to mention hiding a dark side. This also allowed Yi Xian to prove one thing. Although history seemed to return to its original point, 100,000 years had passed in the human world. Although the scenery was similar, the people of the past definitely wouldn't appear again. It seems that I'm going to be disappointed in the end. Even if a person similar to Brother Bai really does exist in this world, he doesn't have the monstrous talent that Brother Bai had in the past. Yi Xian muttered to himself, and even sighed. Yi Xian's purpose in coming to see Xian was very simple. He only wanted to verify a matter that he hoped for in his heart. He wanted to find a person similar to Lu Bai, because if history returned to its original point, perhaps Lu Bai could live in this world in another way. Unfortunately, after Yi Xian's verification, regardless of whether it was the mother and son of the Chu family, or Xian in front of him, although they looked extremely similar to him and his family in the past, they were still independent individuals, and not people of the past. Based on this conclusion, the people of the past wouldn't appear again, and Lu Bai would never appear in this world again. Madman. After hearing Yi Xian's strange words, Xian was certain that there was definitely something wrong with Yi Xian's mind, and a wisp of caution appeared in his eyes. Xian, is he your friend? Zhao Qingxian walked over quickly, and looked at Yi Xian with a face full of surprise. However, her appearance was very similar to Xia Qingzhu in her youth, and this caused Yi Xian to silently glance at this girl. Little brother, if you want to become a person above others, you must constantly strive for self-improvement. Otherwise, this girl will be a calamity for you in the future, and will make you wish you were dead. Yi Xian's eyes were very sharp, and he saw with a glance that this girl looked pure and innocent, but there was a wisp of arrogance in her eyes. If this youth couldn't become a person above others in the future, he would eventually be abandoned by this girl due to the ripples in his sea of love. What nonsense are you talking about? Who are you? Xian's expression was angry. He was naturally very unhappy that his girlfriend was slandered like this. Unfortunately, since Yi Xian had verified that the people of the past wouldn't appear again, there was no need for him to continue speaking with this youth. His entire person quietly turned into a wisp of green smoke and disappeared. He disappeared. Is this a magic trick? This scene caused the girl to cry out in shock, and she continuously shook the youth's arm to ask. However, the youth was already stunned, and simply didn't dare to believe the scene he saw. Chapter 744. Yi Xian was slightly disappointed by the fact that the human world seemed to be the same as it was 100,000 years ago. However, it was only similar in spirit but not in form. Yi Xian had no more reluctance and finally left Jiangnan City. Although it was his hometown, there were no people from the past, which proved that the people of the past could not be reborn. The clouds were surging in the boundless sky. Yi Xian walked slowly, followed by Fatso Huang. They were heading to the place where Lu Bai was buried. Lu Bai, a person that Yi Xian admired very much. Back then, there was no road in heaven and earth, and the path to immortality was cut off. Lu Bai found another way and created the blood and qi transportation method. He was an earth-shaking genius and created the immortal-defying formation with a mortal body. 8 gates of life and death, immortal-defying mortal. These 8 words were the profound meaning of the immortal-defying formation, and also the pride that came from Lu Bai's bones. As a mere mortal, he had created a supreme formation that could suppress immortals. Lu Bai's talent could be said to be unprecedented. How many people in the world could compare with him? Yi Xian had no friends, but Lu Bai was an exception. Yi Xian really regarded him as a friend and hoped that one day he could reverse time and space and gather Lu Bai's scattered spirit between heaven and earth, and really bring him back to life. His soul had been scattered. This was a terrifying word, and it also meant true death. However, there was nothing absolute in this world. The so-called dispersing of one's soul meant that one's soul had been shattered into pieces. Even a saint would not be able to reassemble the fragments of one's soul. However, if one could reverse the cycle of time and space and reassemble the fragments of one's soul with a supreme technique, Lu Bai would be able to reconstruct his soul and truly be reborn. Only the legendary saint of all saints would be able to reverse the cycle of time and space and bring Lu Bai back to life. The current Yi Xian was unable to do so, but he had been working hard in this direction the entire time. A valley sealed the sky and locked the earth. The valley was shrouded in clouds and mist, giving people a hazy and illusory feeling. It was impossible to see the inside of the valley, and this was the place where Lu Bai was buried. Qi. Yi Xian and Yi Xian stepped into the sky. A speck of divine light grew on Yi Xian's fingertip. As he pointed his finger out, the clouds that filled the sky were blown away. The great formation that sealed this valley was also released at this moment. Yi Xian exhaled a mouthful of turbid air. He stared at the valley before him, and a wisp of desolation and loneliness appeared in his eyes. After that, he didn't hesitate to walk into the valley. In the depths of the valley was the bottom of a bottomless abyss. Other than some strange rocks, there was a large number of karst caves. Along the way, there were even plants and flowers growing vigorously. The vicissitudes of the world, the passage of time. If a person had been dead for 100,000 years, not to mention his grave, even his bones would have decayed into dust, truly disappearing from the world. Lu Bai's tombstone had been weathered away, and the once bulging grave mound was now level with the ground. If not for Yi Xian's deep memory of the place where Lu Bai was buried, it was likely that even if an outsider came here, they would not be able to discover that an earth-shattering figure had been buried here. Set up another tombstone for Brother Bai, Yi Xian said softly. Yes, sir. From the moment Yi Xian entered, Fatso Huang felt that something was wrong with Yi Xian's aura. He hurriedly bowed and left to carry out the order. Soon, a brand new tombstone took root in the bulging grave mound. This also caused Fatso Huang to silently retreat, leaving only Yi Xian here. Brother Bai, I've come to see you. The world was bleak and silent. Yi Xian was silent for a long time. He finally broke the silence and said this after a long time. Unfortunately, Lu Bai had been dead for 100,000 years. He would not appear in front of Yi Xian at all. Only Yi Xian could talk to himself in front of his grave. Brother Bai, I've come to see you after so long. Will you blame me? Yi Xian murmured in his sleep. He became somewhat depressed. He slowly sat cross-legged in front of Lu Bai's grave and fell into a monologue. The sun rose and the moon set, and the stars moved. A total of 7 days and nights had passed. Yi Xian started from the moment he entered the Earth Immortal realm and recounted his experiences in the past 100,000 years. Now the ancient demon court wants to destroy the 33 celestial court. The Eastern Emperor Tai and Emperor Jun are the two celestial emperors of the demon race. They also have the support of Saint Nuwa. Even though I've taken Patriarch Nether River into the celestial court, it's just a drop in the bucket. Yi Xian's breath was very heavy. His brows were tightly knitted together. He did not need to hide anything in front of Lu Bai. He even spoke of his dangerous situation. If it's just the ancient demon court, then even if the Eastern Emperor Tai and Di Jun join forces to fight me, I, Yi Xian, wouldn't be afraid. However, the heavenly cycle star formation is too terrifying, and it's one of the 3 great formations in the world. Even saints have to be wary of it. With my current cultivation, I'm unable to lead the heavenly court to fight against this formation. Yi Xian muttered in a heavy voice as he spoke out his thoughts one by one. Unfortunately, Lu Bai had died long ago. Yi Xian could only see his grave. How could Lu Bai appear to comfort Yi Xian? Wine. Suddenly, Yi Xian smiled arrogantly. Fatso Huang quietly appeared behind him and placed jars of immortal wine in front of Yi Xian. Then, he quietly left the place. Brother Bai, you and I got drunk the last 2 times. Today, let's drink together again. Yi Xian lifted the jar and poured a large amount of immortal wine into his mouth. Then, he sprinkled the rest of the wine on the grave. The heavenly cycle stars formation has the power of billions of stars. It can be said to be an ultimate formation that can destroy heaven and earth. People only know how terrifying the heavenly cycle stars formation is, but they don't know that if you, Lu Bai, were still alive in this world, would you even care about the heavenly cycle stars formation? The more wine he drank, the more drunk he became. Yi Xian's face was slightly red, as if he was really drunk. Perhaps he was venting the pressure he had been enduring for a long time in front of Lu Bai's grave. Only in front of Lu Bai's grave could Yi Xian speak his mind. The world was silent, and not a sound could be heard. Lu Bai's grave was full of jars of wine. Yi Xian leaned on Lu Bai's tombstone and looked up at the sky with misty eyes. A fierce look appeared in his eyes. Brother Bai, although you're no longer here, I still want to see you. Suddenly, Yi Xian supported himself on the ground with his arms and slowly stood up. An ancient bronze mirror had appeared in his hand. It was the Kunlun mirror, the Khanate spirit treasure. Time and space reverse, return to the origin. Yi Xian roared. The Kunlun mirror swayed in his hand. A dim yellow light bloomed on the surface of the mirror, and an extremely obscure aura suddenly erupted from the mirror. Rumble. The heavens and the earth shook as time and space turned upside down. The space in this area was distorted to the extreme. The Kunlun mirror suddenly expanded until it covered the entire valley. The dim yellow and turbid light distorted the space in this area. Chapter 745. Boom. Time seemed to be flowing backward and space seemed to be changing. Yi Xian only felt his vision blur and the world was greatly distorted. When he opened his eyes again, the scene in front of him stunned him. Splash! 1,000-foot waterfall poured down. The splashing water droplets were crystal clear. They smashed into the pool and splashed up a lot of waves, giving people a feeling of beauty. The waterfall fell 3,000 feet, as if the Milky Way fell from the 9th heaven. In the rumbling sound of the water, a white-robed man was sitting beside the pool with his back facing Yi Xian. His eyes were lowered and he was staring at the array in his hand. Even if the 1,000-foot waterfall hit the pool and made a loud rumbling sound, it did not seem to disturb him. Brother. Brother Bai? Yi Xian looked at Lu Bai's back in a daze. He clenched his fists and his face became extremely red. When he opened and closed his eyes, they flickered with excitement. Brother Bai! Yi Xian suddenly shouted as he strode towards Lu Bai. He was so excited that he pressed his palm onto Lu Bai's shoulder. However, what happened in the next moment caused him to be stunned on the spot. Yi Xian's palm passed through Lu Bai's body, but Yi Xian did not feel the slightest touch. Obviously, the Lu Bai in front of him was just a scene of time and space. It was just that the Kunlun mirror had backtracked the time and space of this world and reproduced the scene of the past. Yi Xian was stunned and speechless. Bitterness flashed in his eyes. He finally understood that Lu Bai had died long ago. The scene he saw now was just something that had happened in the past. The 8 gates of life and death, the reversal of heaven and earth. If you want to change life into death, you need the 36 stars of heavenly spirit and the 72 stars of earthly fiend to have the power to reverse heaven and earth. No, if the stars shift, the 8 gates of life and death will not be stable. This method still does not work. Lu Bai's brows were furrowed as he recalled time and space. His originally black hair had gradually withered, and there was a large amount of white hair mixed in. Clearly, he was painstakingly creating the inverse immortal array. No, no, no. Brother Yi is in the earth immortal realm. How can he be compared to those terrifying immortals? This immortal-defying array is for the weak to win against the strong. If it can't restrain these terrifying immortals, how can I pass this array to Brother Yi? Suddenly, Lu Bai raised his head. His face was pale, and his eyes were bloodshot. His eyes were filled with unwillingness to accept his fate. At this moment, when Yi Xian saw Lu Bai's familiar face, he clenched his fists tightly. Blue veins bulged on his fists, and a trace of sorrow flashed across his eyes. Even though Yi Xian knew that what was unfolding before him was just the scene of Lu Bai creating the inverse immortal array in the past, when he saw how Lu Bai was dying in order to create the inverse immortal array, it made his heart ache. Heaven and earth reverse, sun and moon hang upside down, 8 gates of life and death, immortals become mortals. If I want to knock down the immortal realm, I'll have to disturb the so-called laws of heaven and earth. Then, I'll have to put the inverse immortal array in this position. Lu Bai's face was filled with joy. The array pen in his hand fell, and he began to draw the inverse immortal array again. Ugh! A mouthful of blood spurted out from Lu Bai's mouth. However, he did not seem to feel anything. Instead, he let out a wild laugh of joy and continued to draw the inverse immortal array. Brother Bai, why do you have to do this? Yi Xian looked at Lu Bai silently. He was also looking at the scene of Lu Bai creating the inverse immortal array in the past. That was because he could tell that Lu Bai was just a mortal back then. However, in order to draw the inverse immortal array, he had long forgotten to eat and sleep, and his body was deteriorating day by day. In the past, Yi Xian had heard from Xueji about Lu Bai's experiences in order to create the inverse immortal array. At that time, he was just lamenting over Lu Bai's feelings. But today, as he witnessed Lu Bai creating the inverse immortal array with his own eyes, Yi Xian's heart ached. Time passed by bit by bit. Just like that, Yi Xian accompanied Lu Bai by his side, watching silently as Lu Bai tirelessly drew the inverse immortal array with all his might. In the karst cave, beside the pool, under the scorching sun, even though Yi Xian had found the body of a golden core immortal cultivator for Lu Bai in the past, Lu Bai's soul and body were gradually reaching the end of their lives under such endless effort. 10 years, 100 years, 200 years, all the way until 400 years. Ha! When the 400th year came, Lu Bai laughed wildly with excitement. He held the inverse immortal array in his hands and shed tears of excitement. However, blood kept flowing out of his mouth. His body was as thin and weak as a skeleton. He had truly reached the end of his life. It was only with the support of his strong will that he was able to survive until now. I did it, I did it. Heaven and earth reversed, the sun and the moon hung upside down, the 8 gates of life and death, the immortal became mortal. Lu Bai danced with joy like a child. He clutched the inverse immortal array in his hands tightly. Although his eyes were withered and lifeless, they were blooming with a majestic light that had never been seen before. Brother Bai. Yi Xian's eyes were filled with bitterness as he looked at the scene before him. If he'd known that the immortal defying formation was created like this, even if he didn't want it, he would have stopped Lu Bai. Unfortunately, time couldn't be reversed. What he saw before him was a scene from the past. Everything could no longer be reversed. One more step, just one more step, and the inverse immortal array will be truly completed. Then, my immortal soul will follow the inverse immortal array and accompany Brother Yi in his conquest of the boundless earth immortal realm. My heart's blood is the knot, my soul is the contract, condense. Bang! Lu Bai laughed wildly. He broke open his heart with a finger and a drop of essence blood appeared from his heart. It instantly sank into the inverse immortal array. This made the inverse immortal array shine brightly. 8 consecutive gates appeared in the void. Endless starlight fell from the sky, causing the inverse immortal array to sway in the void. When all this was done, Lu Bai slowly fell to the ground. His body gradually shone, and even his soul was fading. But even as his soul dissipated, he trembled slightly and handed the inverse immortal array to Xue Jie. He even told her to wait here for Yi Xian's return. Bang! His physical body collapsed and his soul dissipated. Lu Bai finally turned into a cloud of dust and dissipated between heaven and earth. Only his white robe fell to the ground. From then on, Lu Bai was no longer in this world. Brother Bai. The mountains and rivers shook, and the sky collapsed. When Yi Xian saw Lu Bai's soul dissipating before his eyes, he couldn't bear the pain of parting with his best friend. He let out a shrill and unwilling cry. When his best friend died in front of Yi Xian felt a heart-wrenching pain. It was so painful that he couldn't breathe. This was because Lu Bai died for him. If he didn't have Lu Bai's inverse immortal array, he might have died at the hands of those great enemies. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.